Here we go. What a show tonight for you guys. I'm excited tonight, guys. We got an outstanding panel here, guys. An outstanding panel. Please take a few minutes, guys, to go ahead and tweet this out. I know everybody's doing a podcast or a post reactions to State of Play, but we got an outstanding panel here. So I'm glad you guys are in the right place at the right time. We're going to get into it. I see the internet is abuzz. What do they say? I guess even bad publicity is good publicity. So we'll see what happens here when it comes to the State of Play and what this panel is going to give everybody, or pardon me, give Sony a rating on. We have some other folks joining us second hour. So I believe Jez7780 is going to be joining us. Maybe Nib as well. We'll see. Very busy guy over in the restaurant business. You guys know Nib very well from Twitter. That being said, guys, please hit the like button. Take a second. I am very excited about tonight's show. I love when there's gaming news to talk about live, fresh. It is literally just ending. People are talking about it. It's a buzz. So go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you will. And if you look at that outstanding, look at that unbelievable description down there. That unbelievable description right above it is the join button. I want to say shout out and thanks again to Esprit Lotus and Mash. Mash again donated another 20 subs to the channel last week. Just outstanding. All you guys with green names out there, please, when your 4 weeks is up, please consider subscribing back to the channel. We really appreciate it. There's so many names again. I'm going to go ahead and they're all listed in the description. You guys are all listed. All the new members are all in there. You're all part of the family. But I have a great panel, a larger panel this week due to the festivities going on. And then, of course, we've only got a little over 2 hours to get it all through. So that being said, guys, let me start with the one and only, guys. He is back, and he's been gone for basically 2 weeks. He did a pop-in cameo a week ago, a pop-in cameo, which kind of counts. It kind of counts. But the great basement, radio, arcade, podcast, BRAP, is back on the show. BRAP, how the hell are you doing tonight, buddy? BRAP.
Yeah, it's going to be a great show.
No, I hope so, BRAP. I thought you were also in another time zone. I didn't know where you went.
It was actually the southern hemisphere of the planet Earth with Falky.
Well, it's good to have you, BRAP.
Time
honestly,
traveling.
Tonight's going to be one of those nights that opinions matter, and yours is truly going to be great to hear. So glad you're here right at the start of the show, BRAP. Speaking of that, the great David Faulkner is with us. As you guys know, the gaming community's accountant. He is here to talk about, of course, the PlayStation business meeting that happened last night. We're going to get into a little bit of those numbers as well. David, how the hell is it down over there down under, please?
Yeah, no, great to be here. Lovely day. It's a nice day this morning. I think we're mid-teens in the Celsius range.
Oh.
And nice sunny day, a few scattered clouds, sunshine and bright. It's going to be a cracking weekend ahead of us. We made it to Friday. Woohoo. Let's go.
Well, we're almost there, and in case you guys are wondering, David gave you guys a math assignment to start Crossfire. That's 16 Celsius. Figure that out, what it is in the States for the rest of us, please, and put it in the chat. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. The great Detective Seeds is back with us. Seeds, honestly, I got to tell you, man, you have some of the greatest and loudest opinions on Twitter these days. If you're not following Detective Seeds, please go over and do that. You are wasting your time in the gaming community if you're not. Seeds, how the hell are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. Good. Looking forward to talking about some of the topics that we have, addressing the state of play. You know, not going to hold anything back there. I expected quite a bit more. So I'm looking forward to getting into it and talking with the panel. It's a good group here.
Well, we're definitely going to get into that state of play, boy. Believe me, one way or the other. And you guys know him as my voice doppelganger. The great Mag is back again. Yeah. Mag makes it so that I can go and enjoy happy hour during the show. I can leave whenever I want. The great Mag is back. Mag, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I am doing fantastic, Mooch, and what a great panel we got here today. Yes. The chat's already rocking, and for all you heathens, 16 Celsius is about 60.8 degrees Fahrenheit for you guys.
Oh.
Okay, the only people in the world who do that. But anyways, we got a show. I mean, we had a state of play to talk about. We have a business. What was that, like the little business meeting they had last night?
Business meeting.
Yeah, I watched that. That was actually really good. I watched a good breakdown of that from Dreamcast guy actually, who was on. What was he? Was he on with us, BRAP, last week?
It was. Yes, he was last week.
It was last week.
Yeah. That was that last week or the week before?
Last week.
That was last week.
Oh, yeah, time flies when you drink a lot. Anyway, let's get into the show, Mooch. We got lots to talk about.
Mag, thanks for doing that easy calculation for us. Over here in the States, we have a rough time with that, but I do appreciate it, Mag. The great WoolleyGamer is back with us again. He was here last week. He says, Mooch, if you're doing a live reaction, get a hold of me. I'd like to do that with the State of Play with you. I said, here's the thing, Wooly. I said, they're always playing some sort of music, and when you do a live reaction, generally you have a problem with copyright, or what is it, the claim there. They say the music, you can't play the music. I said, we're going to talk about it at 7 o'clock. Would you like to join us? He says, you bet your ass I'll be there. The great WoolleyGamer's back with us. Wooly, how you doing tonight, buddy? Either my headset is not working or Wooly is on a delay.
Wooly's been time traveled to the southern hemisphere.
Yeah.
Well, it's possible, guys. Keep in mind for Wooly, it is 12:11 a.m. over there in England. So we are going to go ahead and not blame Wooly one bit. Wooly, we'll get back to you in a second here. And this is a real privilege here. I've been trying to get this guy on the show for some time around. I think it's 13 months. I don't really, after 12 months, my tallies, I lose track. The great Zocker87 is back on Crossfire again. Great to have Zocker back. I have not talked to him in so long. I can't wait to hear what he's got to think about tonight's show, as well as all the news that's been going on, especially over the last 4 weeks. The great Zocker is back. Zocker, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to actually be back. Good to talk to you. I know we couldn't line up on me joining the podcast for a little bit. It's been several months. So I'm glad to be here, man. Glad to talk about this. I know we just went into Celsius. It's like negative 15 Celsius with that show that just happened. And quick math, that's about 5 degrees. So it's a real cold show, boys. I'm not going to lie. And so, coming into a little bit of enemy territory, if you know what I mean.
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm glad to be here.
Well, listen, it's all friendly fire, Zucker, so don't worry about it. You don't have to have any shields up at all here. You speak freely. Listen, I'm going to put Zucker on the hot seat since he's back here with us. Zucker, let's talk about the state of play. The general reactions here. I'll just list off the games. I'll save my opinion. I may give a few as the panel goes through, but I will let the panel discuss first. So Zucker, we had Concord, God of War Ragnarok to PC, Dynasty Warriors Origins, Infinity Nikki, Ballad of Antara. If I'm saying some of these wrongs, I apologize. Skydance. Yes, Wooly, we hear you now, Wooly. I'm just going through these for Zucker, and then we will go right. I'll get right back to your intro in a second, Wooly. Alien Rogue Incursion. Marvel's Rivals, Where Winds Meet, Until Dawn, PS5, PC, Path of Exile 2, which is going to be, I believe, in early access in PS5, Silent Hill 2, Monster Hunter Wilds, and Astrobot. So I just listed those for the audience. Zucker, I know you saw them. I'm sure you wrote them down. By the way, shout out to the great Zuby Tech, who provided that information on Twitter. I wrote them all down on my iPad, but you know what? He did it for me, so I just copied and pasted. So the great Zuby Tech, thank you. Zucker, what do you think about what you saw, overall consensus going into it, what you feel now, and were there any games at all that even kind of hit your spidey sense?
To be honest, I kind of gave this thing, I didn't expect much.
Right.
I know, because the last showing Sony had, or showcase, was last May, and I thought that was extremely disappointing for me, from my perspective. Mm-hmm. And I like their games, I've played Spider-Man, all that. This one today, I didn't expect much, and they kind of brought more than I thought. But man, I felt like, just like I do with Xbox, like, cool, this is a state of PC at this point. Concord or wherever, I did not like the way that looked, and I'm a massive shooter fan. I play everything. The weight didn't look good. I think there's too much competition for something like that. Like Valorant is the hero shooter right now, and I would say Overwatch. This is going to have a hard time breaking into that. A couple games like that have come out, like the finals, stuff like that did not perform as well as people wanted. So I think this is going to have a tough time even getting a footing. And if it does, hey, if it plays well, that's awesome. That's just more shooters. Mm-hmm. But I think live service games are super saturated right now. So I think I think that's going to have a tough time. After that, God of War coming to PC is awesome. I've already beaten it. God of War Ragnarok beat on the PlayStation 5. But I'm looking forward to that on PC. I always like looking at the benchmarks. I'm playing Ghost of Tsushima on there right now. Yeah. So it's great. And then I would say Path of Exile is probably the most impressive I saw at the show, next to Astrobot.
It looked good. It did look good.
Yeah, and it's Path of Exile too. I play Diablo a lot. I've played these games a lot. I would say Path of Exile is probably Diablo's biggest competition coming this year.
Yes.
And it's not even close. And I know they brought out their new season, but that Path of Exile is going to be a monster for Blizzard and everybody to deal with. A lot of people that I know that play those games are waiting for it. So looking forward to that. But Astrobot did show really well, and I enjoyed the first one a lot. So I think that it showed cool. I thought that it's a pretty decent, I guess, what do you call it? Like a new IP within PlayStation that just looks fun. It just looks like a good time. It doesn't bother me. But so far, to give the show overall,
Yeah.
like a C minus, D plus.
Okay.
Like, you know, like that's what I'll give it. I'm not going to say it was like not worth my time. I enjoyed it, but again, a lot of the games, especially the PSVR stuff, I just do not care.
So, you know, it's
Like,
fun.
that's just not my thing.
Zucker, now that I got you on the show, and I got to ask you, because like you said, you're saying enemy territory, not even close. Great to have you on the show. I got to ask you, a Silent Hill 2, I think that's going to do okay. I think it's going to do pretty well. If Silent Hill 2, let me ask you, I want to ask you, I don't want to give any points. If Silent Hill 2 was an Xbox exclusive, or limited timed exclusive, wouldn't everybody be going crazy for that over on the Xbox camp?
I legitimately don't think so. I don't care about it. I didn't care about Silent Hill when it was announced. I think that is one of the most, I'm going to say right now, people are going to lose their shit, but I think, sorry if I cursed, but I don't think people give a crap about that franchise. In its entirety, Silent Hill has sold like 8.4 million copies in its entire series all put together. I don't think it's a big enough name or game to lose your crap over. And I'm not a big, like horror fan, so that is another reason. If people were jumping off the rooftops if it's exclusive for Xbox or PlayStation, I just think it's about the console war. Like, it doesn't matter, at least in my mind. And if anybody feels different, if it's one of their favorite franchises, hey, I get it. But for me, and for what it seems like the general audience is, I don't think it's going to be gangbusters.
It's one of those, in air quotes, beloved franchises for the, you hear it it was brought up time and time again. Forget about PlayStation, Xbox for a second. Just the game itself, like you were talking, its numbers. And it's one of those games that was constantly brought up over the years. Are we ever going to get Silent Hill 2 remade the proper way? Blah, 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 this and that. Here it is. And it's funny because I'm seeing it and I'm sitting there saying, I don't think it looks bad. I think it looks pretty good. And I think it's just it is, and you're not the only one. A lot of people are really kind of ragging on it. I'm wondering if people are going to come around as we welcome Wooly.
I think it looked dated a little bit. Sorry, I think it looked a little dated, the graphics wise. I thought the graphics were not that impressive. I don't know if anybody, tell me if I'm wrong, guys, but when I was looking at that, I was like, this looks like a PS4 3 game. Like, what is going? Like, it did not look that great.
I thought it looked better than it did in its last showing. I'll give it that, though, Zucker. And Wooly, what were you saying, Wooly? I know that you were not happy with the showing yourself.
No, I think Zorka kind of summed it up perfectly, to be honest, and took the words out of my mouth. Everything that he said, I kind of agree with. I think, especially to do with the saturation of the hero shooter and everything like that. I mean, you've got games releasing that have everything going for them and still flop and fail, like the finals, for example. It was all the rave, people were praising the destruction and all that lot, and it falls because I just think so you capture lightning in the bottle with live service games that last more than 3 months, and it's literally a lightning in the bottle risk, and I just think it's silly that they're going for these kind of experiences. But I don't know, the Overwatch crowd is very what's the word, disillusioned with Overwatch at the moment, and with Blizzard, and maybe this is coming at the right time for them, but it's not for me. I like the fact that the gunplay kind of gives me Destiny vibes. The gunplay, actually, it feels like a mixture of Overwatch meets Destiny, in terms of how the movement and the gunplay and the weightiness of the gunplay. But overall, like, it's just not something that it's just not for me, bro. It's for the 70% casual market, not for me. I thought Astrobot looked phenomenal, but again, it's just not my kind of game anymore. Monster Hunter Wilds was my highlight, but it was kind of the only game that really appealed to me. There were some pretty cool, Antara, Behemoth VR, Where Winds Meet, as well. But with VR games, I'm far more a stereoscopic 3D controller guy. I want what PC VR does with Unreal Engine 5 games, where you can play games as a normal game, but it's fully rendered in 3D around your head. That's my kind of my ultimate VR kind of thing. I'm not a fan of this whole controllers as hands and waving my arms around, and everything's clunky and awkward. And it's just I'm a sit down with a controller in my hand kind of guy. And so for PSVR to have stereoscopic 3D modes kind of retroactively fitted into games, like playing Uncharted 4 in full 3D, that would be incredible, right? And that's what I want with updates, and that's what I was hoping for. And as yet, I've yet to receive that with PSVR. So again, nothing was really speaking to me, Mooch, and I don't want to be a boom. I don't want to be a kind of a bum, party boomer, kind of knock down what will be great for other people. But for me personally, it was a D-.
Okay.
Yeah, when it comes to
and that's lower than what I put.
Yeah,
Jeez.
I told you.
Yeah,
you know what?
Even Umbra, bro. Even Umbra gave it a 6 out of 10. I was like, flipping heck. If Umbra scores it higher than me, you know I'm down bad.
Can I put a challenge out there?
Go ahead,
Take out
David.
the personal for everyone on the panel. Take out the personal aspect and look at what was presented, and think about it from a holistic gaming perspective. Would you still give it the same
It's much
score?
better.
So
No,
From
no,
a
absolutely not.
holistic point of gaming.
yes.
And can I ask you what do you mean by that? Like I'm genuinely asking. Do you mean like for just like other people, not myself? Like what would people like?
Oh, it's the conversation out there at the moment is gaming's got trouble, gaming's in problems, and all this other crap that goes on. It's just more of a, if you looked at the games, at that thing as a whole, and went, right, Concord might not be for me, and it's certainly not going to be for me personally, but it looked great, it looked polished,
Yeah.
the gameplay was
phenomenal.
there or
It looks
thereabouts.
great, yeah.
So if I sat here and said that thing was garbage and I give it a 0 out of 10 because there was nothing in that showcase that appealed to me, is that then looking at through the other lens going, well, actually some of these games look really good. Some of the smaller games look quite inquisitive. Astrobot is what Astrobot does, and it's great that that's coming.
Mhm.
But there's some other bits and pieces in there that aren't necessarily for us as seasoned console gamers. But if you took it through the lens of, as a presentation of gaming, how does it look? Is it still a horrible showing, or is it something that's actually, well, this doesn't look too bad? And
I mean, I would say it doesn't.
Give it a B+ in that regard. If I wasn't rating it as personal for me, it would be a B+ in its overall delivery. But yeah, for me personally, is what
I gotta say though, I do agree. I agree a bit with what Forky's saying here, and I was saying this just before when it was me and Wooly. Zucker came in at the end there, and Meg as well. I said, Concord, whether that's for you or not, I understand. But Ballad of Antara looked very good. I thought, I really did. Path of Exile 2, I thought it looked really well. I think Silent Hill 2, again, for maybe the fan favorites out there, I think that's going to do very, very well. Astrobot was a big hit. I even saw people who said I didn't like the show, but Astrobot, clear win there. They gave attention to PSVR2, Skydance Behemoth, Alien Rogue. Again, this is not a showcase. This is a state of play. I don't remember, there's probably one of the last 3 state of plays where anyone thought that this was going to be the best thing since sliced bread. I think this is a situation where I think Fucky makes a good point. I also do agree with you heard Wooly and you heard Zucker giving their personal opinions on the games and the way those games affected them. If they're not going to play it, this was just not for them, and I respect that.
Do you mind if I from a holistic game point? Like honestly, thanks, sorry, Mooch. I have to say that even from a holistic game point, I've seen this before. I feel like I've seen this, and this is what people are talking about with gaming. And this is one of the things that Sony needs to, at least in my opinion, and what other people have said, is that we've seen this before. Spider-Man 2, we've seen it before. Astrobot, I've seen Astrobot. Am I looking forward to the sequel? Of course, but I have seen what Concord is. It looks like something I've seen before. What is pushing the envelope? Where are the risks? Where are the stuff that is going to come out? Because I know a lot of people don't want to hear this. I think Sony, they've said that they're not going to have anything come out till I think, what do they say, next May or something?
April.
And they're gonna have some stuff come out, and I see that coming out. But I think that the change in leadership, where they were very focused on live services and then pulled back on it, they lost multiple years of development doing that. And there's no working around it. that is going to be hard for them to do that. And I get what's going on, but everything I've seen in this state of play, I've seen already. And that is why, like, I've been very critical of not just PlayStation, but also Xbox. And I know a lot of people are like surprised to hear that, but gaming in general, that's it. Like, I've seen this, let me see something different. Just like Hellblade, like, I gave Hellblade 2 a 5 out of 10. I did not enjoy that game, but it's because I was like, I've seen this shit before. Like, it's the same thing. What am I doing? Yeah. And yeah, it looked beautiful, but again, it was, to me, boring and the same thing as the first one. So that's all. Like, from a creative standpoint, it didn't feel creative. Like, you brought Guardians of the Galaxy. It didn't feel creative. Like, we've seen this before.
Mm. Yeah, no, and it's a fair point. I want to welcome Nib to the show and Jez7780. Appreciate both of you guys being here tonight. Nib, just pop in real quick. And by the way, BRAP and Seeds, anybody, the same way that Zalker and Wooly are doing an outstanding job, Mag as well. Please, guys, chime in whenever you want to get your thoughts in here. Nib, what did you think of the show? I think everybody's on a time delay.
You've been left hanging so many times. That's like, you know, you like put up for a high five and then nobody does it. No, I want to run by and just give you one. Just be like, I got you, bro.
I'm sorry. Everyone's having mic problems. There, Nib bounced out. He's back. Jez, what did you think of the show?
Yo, yeah, I thought it wasn't too bad. You know, there was definitely some down points of it. The two games that stood out for me was the Monster Hunter Wilds and the Astrobot, because I wasn't looking forward to an Astrobot sequel. I'm like, yeah, what can they do more of it? And then what they showed, and I was like, holy crap! Like, they're doing they're doing a lot with it, and those kind of escalated big boss fights and just the amount of stuff that's doing. The only thing I could think they could add is probably co-op to it. But yeah, I thought those two games kind of were impressive to me. I think Silent Hill 2 had a little bit of a blooberish look to it. I don't know about that. Some of the gunshots looked a little...
It looked weird, man. It looked weird.
A little. I saw a little stench of the bloobers coming through the screen there on that one. And then, the other thing was Concord. I thought that the way they presented that, we didn't need a video. I'm done with that shit. I'm done with these friggin' videos. Like, come on. Put that as like I'm not a fan. I don't think that does anything for me anymore. Maybe for other people it may. But that whole like cinematic thing in the beginning was just that. I like seeing the gameplay, and then when they show the gameplay, it looks like Sony's Overwatch. And again, I approach these service games, and I was talking to Frogs early on the show, my show, and we were just like, they showed two kind of hero shooters in the same show, and they both have betas coming out the same month. But I think with Concord, I don't think they did a great job in showing what the difference is, because it looked like just like their version of a hero shooter. And again, as of these service games, I always approach them with a level of caution, because I'm like, what's the hook? Is the characters going to be behind some sort of like leveling up, earning stars, or what is the game? You can show me the gameplay, but what, where's the gotcha? First off, because it's a service game, and then secondly, like, am I going to want to continue to play this? I think, one of the issues that they have with hero shooters is that typically deathmatch isn't it. It's usually this team-based kind of game mode that would do something with the abilities of the characters. And they didn't show that on that thing. Like, yeah, escort missions. Like, Overwatch has the escort mission. They don't have, like, that was the thing that really wasn't shown. They just showed deathmatch, and it's like, that's great, but the tank is going to be the dropping the shield. Like, you could see it. And I heard what Zalker was saying, too. Like, you could kind of just like vision, okay, there's the tank, there's the sniper, there's the thing. So like, we got to try it.
It feels like they're trend. It feels like they're trend chasing, and this is something that I don't like to see. It's like it's not just service games. Like, there's service games that are out there that have come out that have not really like just tried something different. Like, I will be honest, like
Hellblade 2 blew me away. Helldivers 2. Helldivers 2 blew me away on that.
I'll be honest. I know people are going to make fun of it, but has anybody played anything else that's like Sea of Thieves? Like, to their credit, they tried something different that Xbox didn't have any. Like, a lot of people didn't have faith in that game, but it was so different that people were like, "This is fun."
Didn't have faith in that game either.
No, they didn't at all. They didn't have. And trust me, I'm the biggest. I have like 900 hours in that game. Trust me, I'm the biggest Sea of Thieves fan you probably.
But that took a lot of years though to get to where it is though. Right. Like, but
the point is, missions. The foundation was different. This is not a different foundation. Concord is to Overwatch. And one of the things that I think it was Matt Booty said this on Xbox, he's like, we can't chase what other companies did. Like, you're about to go against Riot Games with Valorant. That is not a winning battle. Riot Games are masters at service games. Nobody competes with them. It's not even close. They make so much money. Oh, maybe Fortnite. But, like, they know what they're doing. Like, that's what you're going to be going up against. There's no trend setting. Like, that's just in my head. There's nothing that you're doing outside there.
You did say something, too, because didn't Jim Ryan, before he's eating Jell-O pudding and, sitting at the retirement home, now, didn't he say that our service games are going to be something different? Didn't he say we're doing different things? I remember him saying that shit.
I don't know if he said that, man, but I will say that if they're going to try that, like, they got to try something different. Like, Helldivers, to me, like, Helldivers is going to be their most successful game for multiple years. And I played the hell out of that on PC, and I enjoyed it. But if you look at the developers, they had an understanding of what gamers wanted, what they wanted, and they set a culture of just, like, straight up, like, lean into it, like, for the Republic. Like, they were insane. It was like Helldivers got hacked, right, by somebody, and they put out what the game has coming, and the developers, instead of banning that guy, was like, for the Republic, he hacked it so he can be ready for the battle later. Like, they didn't even yell at him. They were like, cool, dude. Like, they leaned into it so much. Like, it was insane. So that kind of thing.
And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of you saying that this game, we got to play it and see. Now, you're right. Nothing we saw was different. But I will tell you, Zucker, leading up to Helldivers 2, because I always say this, gamer, we all have short-term memory. Everybody forgets. But when I brought up, don't forget, guys, next week, I said this on the show, don't forget, next week, Helldivers 2 releases, everyone was like, nah.
Exactly, Mooch. I wasn't hyped for it. I didn't even...
Nobody wanted it. Nobody cared.
I was hyped for it because I like multiplayer games and I like playing with my friends. I was extremely hyped for it because I instantly thought of Starship Troopers. Yes. And I was like, let's go, dude.
Yes. But at the same time, like I said, Extraction isn't exactly a new concept either. It just hasn't been done in a long, long time. I agree with you that we have to try something new. I think your example with Sea of Thieves was very good. That's completely outside the box. And I think after, again, with time, like Jez said, it got pretty darn good. When it released, it was a little shaky, but nonetheless.
I still won't play it. I don't give it.
Yeah, so now the Mag,
still put me asleep.
I got to go to Mag here.
Is my mic working, by the way?
Now it is, Nib. Yes, the first 3 people I went to, everyone's mic wasn't working. I was like, what the hell's going on here? I was like, I got to do a solo cast. Nib, great to have you here. I'm going to go to you in a second. I just want to get the Mag in here because Mag is what Mag doesn't realize is it's actually 5:30 right now, so he's here for a few hours. But Mag, Mag, what did you think of this show? And I know you got a lot on your mind.
No. But you know what? When it came to the show, I wasn't expecting much. When they said it was a state of play, not a game showcase, it's a little bit different, right? Like, your expectations.
That's what I was thinking, Mag.
You know what I mean? Like, you got to put it into check depending on what exactly they're presenting. Like, for example, if I look at like this Xbox showcase that's coming out in June, I'm expecting big things because that's a big showcase.
It's a showcase,
right? But if Sony says a state of play, I'm like, okay. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate. They're probably going to show a couple things I'm not interested in or whatever. And that's just me personally. Now, I'll be quick, but here's the thing. I saw Concord. It had that vibe of sort of that arena shooter, like everybody has already mentioned. The Overwatch thing, a little bit of Destiny in there, a little bit of Halo in there. And I'm like, okay, I'm not really a hero shooter kind of guy, but I'm like, all right, it looked interesting, but still, not the biggest a deal. Obviously, the highlight here was Astrobot, right? I mean, that's the big game. That's the one I'm going to buy in the fall. That's no question whatsoever. And of course, the DualSense 5 features and the implementation of the last game, absolutely amazing. I just go back and play it all the time. And when someone wants to try out the controller, the first thing I do is I launch up Astrobot for someone to say, check this out, give it a try, see what you think. You know what I mean? And people get that idea of what this thing can do. But the other one that caught my attention, I got to tell you, it was a little bit off the wall. I didn't think it was going to catch my attention. Ballad of Antara. Did you guys see that?
That's what I said.
Yeah, that was good too.
That was good. You're more than just...
Yeah, that was one of my favorite games.
That was one of my favorite games I saw. And the thing is, Meg, I want to give you the mic back. First of all, Meg, we really are twins just separated by 2 different countries. I got to tell you, I was saying that before the show started. That was like top of my list. And not to mention, again, it's a state of play. It's not a showcase. If this was a showcase, boy, would I be down. This is the big... We still don't even know what their big teams are doing. So go ahead, Meg. I took the mic from you.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. Like, everybody's talking about Ghost of Tsushima 2, whatever Naughty Dog's working on. Sony Santa Monica's got something in the works, and Sony Bend, the rest of them, right? But we know that they're not going to do that for a state of play. So as soon as they announce a state of play, get that all out of your mind. It's over. So what they're going to do? They're going to do what they generally have done for literally 3 generations now. Xbox is going to go first. Xbox is going to do what they're going to do.
Yep.
And then they're going to look at that. They're going to evaluate their situation and then come out strong in the fall and say, okay, well, they're doing this, that, and the other. Well, now we're doing this. And then what they're going to do is they're going to take that thunder away. They've done that over and over and over again. I can see that. Now, the interesting thing is, and this is a caveat that I want to put in there, because now Microsoft has put themselves in a position. I don't want to shift this off to Microsoft, but I'm going to say this, is that every showcase, and I said this back in January to Colt, and I said everything they announce is going to have an asterisk next to it now. Is it coming to PS5? Is it coming to PS5? Is this going over here? Is this going to multiplayer? What's going? Are they going to close the studio? Whatever, right? So is it going to be successful? Is Game Pass working? Whatever. So now this Microsoft situation, I think Sony's going to wait and see what happens because if they start announcing Xbox games going third party to PlayStation, then they're kind of doing PlayStation's work for them anyway. You know what I mean in that respect. So maybe that's I think that's why they went with the state. The reason why I brought that up is that's why I think there's a state of play announced today and not a games showcase. They're doing this first. Let Microsoft do their thing. They're going to benefit off of some of the announcements I think that Microsoft is going to make.
Yep.
And then Sony comes out in the fall and then blows everybody's balls off with like a whatever, right? Ghost of Tsushima 2. And like I said, a teaser for Naughty Dog. And it's about time. Now, the thing is, I know a lot of people freaking out. I know there's a lot of PlayStation fans in the chat and on the panel, whatever, and people are freaking out. Oh, they got nothing. It's over. It's done. But first of all, two things. One, they've dominated MPDs the entire year without question, right?
Yep.
We just got the new MPDs. They destroyed them. So it's no problem. The other thing is, if you actually look at the PS4 generation, which is one of their most successful next to the PS2, most of those games didn't come out till year 5. So, you know what I mean? From year 5, 2018, 19, and 20 was just haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, and then they just dusted everybody's dick in the dirt at that point, right? And so, like, you know what I mean? And then that's what really happened. And then, of course, that also coupled with the fact that they launched a Pro, and then, of course, they put the PS4 down to half price. You don't think that this is all part of the plan? It's all part of the plan.
Yep.
So, we all have to just kind of calm down and say, okay.
Everybody's so reactionary, Meg. It's so true. If guys, just history repeats itself. Just look back to the PS4. Watch what happens. Not just that. People were like, do you think before we knew it was going to be a state of play, everybody said, oh, this is going to end up being, a showcase. And I'm like, if you think back, the formula hasn't necessarily changed. If you remember back to E3, Microsoft always went first. I said, if there's going to be a PlayStation showcase, it's going to be after June 9th. I don't know when. I'm not a prophet, but it's going to be after.
I think it's going to be either somewhere between July and September would be my guess, because don't forget, they have to announce this new hardware and give people enough time to be able to get in and to put pre-orders in, whatever else, for the people who are going to buy it. Last thing I'm going to say before I pass off the mic here, I don't want to hog this thing all night. Dynasty Warriors look pretty cool, and the other one that looked okay. Now, here's the thing. When they first started showing Silent Hill 2, I was looking at the wife. First of all, my wife was watching it too at work, and she messaged me. She goes, "Does this look a little off?" And I said, "It looks
blueberish is the term. Blueberish.
Blueberish. Yeah. Jez said it properly. Blueberish. I got to tell you, the wife had a Starfield face. Okay.
Oh shit! Resting Starfield face. Oh no.
And I said, I'm watching it, and I'm going, she has a Starfield face. Look at those friggin' eyes, like those googly eyes going on. I'm like, what is happening here? The mouth is moving off. It wasn't right. And I'm like, okay, so let's see gameplay. Gameplay looked serviceable.
Yes.
However, you got to understand something. Now, we talked about this behind the scenes, detective scenes. We were just yip-yapping about what platinums we just got. I just finished getting the Resident Evil, because I'm doing all the Resident Evils. All the remakes, everything. I'm getting platinums on all of them, because I already did it on Xbox. I'm doing it all on PlayStation now. So we just got the platinum. My God, what a trek that was for Resident Evil 5. Okay? This isn't a remake like part 1 and part 2, 3, and 4. This is still the original that was just like visually remastered, right? Like for what was it? It's like 7 years ago, whatever the hell it was, and on the PS4. So we just played it on the PS5, and that thing plays incredibly well for a game that hasn't been touched gameplay-wise.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because when you talk about Silent Hill, you have to talk about Resident Evil. This thing has to play like Resident Evil, or you have no chance.
That's right.
Against the kings. Of survival horror.
And that shooting looked a little raw. When he shot the shotgun, I was like, "That's."
It looked a little, like it looked Nintendo-ish. Like
I have no faith in Bloober Team. I'm sorry, I just don't.
Bluebird has
Wooly,
really
Bluebird.
shit the bed with the Xbox games that they made. What was that one? That stupid one with the girl that splits in two.
The medium.
The medium.
The medium.
And then also they messed up with the other one they did with the
Blair
game
Witch.
before that was the Blair Witch. That was my first experience with Bluebird.
Blair Witch was the only game that's actually not.
I couldn't figure out how to turn on the car. I was done in 5 minutes.
It's the only game that's not basically a collage of stolen ideas and basically copy and pasted other people's work. Like it's crazy to me that they just like Layers of Fear. It was just like there was a video that kind of exposed them as one-to-one copying other people's entire sequences, like of for example PT. They just copied PT completely, like including the animations and everything.
My question is why did Sony, who is very meticulous with who they choose to partner with, everybody knows this. When they start doing the serenading of these studios, and then they start working on them with third party, and if it starts working out, then they start courting each other and dating and stuff. The next thing you know, Sony buys them, right? And that's how they've done it with a lot of their studios. Why? My question is, and I don't know, everybody in the panel's got an answer for me. Doesn't it seem a little odd that they decided to partner with them of all people for a game with this kind of?
Because they're running out of people to go to. I mean, like when you look at everything, like this is the big question about why consolidation. People are afraid of it. It's because who else are you? Like, how many independent studios are truly out there that you're able to lock down? Because then you have to pay a premium. And on top of it, like I understand what Mag said. Sorry if I'm cutting anybody off, but Mag brought up a good thing about like, oh, Sony's going to go lat. I get that, and Sony has always reacted to what Xbox does and kind of just ate their lunch. And I fully agree with that. But this year, I think this is Sony's 2022 from Xbox, where there's not much. There's not much that's going to come. They don't have things that are ready. COVID, and they mentioned it, kind of caught up now. Like it got caught up to them. So I'm not expecting too much for this to come out. If we remember, the PS4 Pro launched with fucking zilch. So I don't think that the PS5 Pro launch is going to change anything, and people need stuff there. I think Astro Bot's going to be enough for them. I think they're going to move forward with that. And when the gaming landscape the next few years, especially since ABK has been done, is going to change dramatically. Especially if the next Xbox, as Jez said, is going to have Steam on it 100%, then you can play PlayStation games on Steam on your Xbox. Like, that is going to happen.
Is it really an Xbox at that point? I mean,
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's going to be. They're moving. There was a Discord in January leak that is looking to be like 100%. And they are like that. Everybody made fun of that leak, but it has gone down pretty much the line of everything that happened. And one of those was Steam on Xbox on the platform. It's going to be a PC driven thing, but that is what's going to happen. Xbox's hardware, they're going to move down a different row, and they're going to make it third party manufacturing probably where anyone can make one. And it's going to be like that, kind of like the ROG Ally. Like the gaming landscape is going to change.
If you look at the Ally and you look at those numbers aren't great, and when you look at the Steam boxes, those didn't do well. It's really it's another pivot, and I got to be honest with you, Zucker, that's fine. But everybody who wants to play on Steam is already on Steam. Like that's to me.
I completely agree. I'm not even capping for Xbox's hardware.
No, I know you're not.
I was one of the only people 4 years ago who said, and I got murdered by everybody, by the way, that said that I think the Xbox Series X is going to sell 45 million. And people like jumped on me like, there's no way. I'm like, dude, look at the Xbox One sales, look at the Series X sales, and they're below the Xbox One sales. Yeah. They're about to head to that trend of what I called. Yeah. I'm not if anybody listens to me, I'm not capping for hardware.
No.
Can I jump in real quick?
Go ahead,
things?
Yeah, sure.
So I think that PlayStation is establishing that relationship for the Silent Hill remake because they want access and they want the early rights to Silent Hill F. I think that we keep forgetting that is a title that they are working on that has been worked on for a couple of years now, and I do think that they are getting in with that relationship to do this remake because they want that game as well. When it comes to the PS5 Pro, I have to tiptoe a little bit because of conversations that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to tell you now, I am 100% confident in I know of at least 3 first-party studios at PlayStation that have games ready to go. I'm not the only one saying this. There are other journalists who have even more access than what I do that have gone hands-on with some of these. It is no secret that there's going to be another event later this year in the form of a showcase. I expect that the reason that you are seeing some of these things being held back is because Sony has something coming that they want to release other products around. The other thing that I think we're forgetting here when it comes to the consoles and all this other stuff is Grand Theft Auto 6. I'm going to continue to harp on Grand Theft Auto 6 because that game's not a first-party studio for Xbox or PlayStation, and that thing's probably going to sell, just buku numbers of consoles.
20 million.
Millions and millions. We also have to remember when it comes to the PlayStation 4. Last night we were talking about this. It's approximately 49 million people haven't upgraded to a PS5.
Right.
I have to think that a good amount of that 49 million probably likes and plays the Grand Theft Auto series. It will be interesting to see how many of those upgrade whenever that game comes out, so that they can get in and into the ecosystem and upgrade. Because what I think is going to happen here eventually, and I wish it would have already happened, but I do understand why it hasn't. Eventually, these games are going to turn off the switch for what I call last gen. We aren't in next gen. We're in current gen. Current gen's PS5 and the Xbox Series X. We are in that generation. And at some point, that faucet's going to get turned completely off, and they're going to force people to upgrade whether they like it or they don't. And so
I think Death Stranding 2 is going to be a beautiful hybrid upgrade for PS5 Pro.
I just think I have to stay away from the PS5 Pro and whether it's real or not. I just have to stay away from that. But it is obvious that Sony is, I don't want to say sandbagging because that might not be the right thing, but I think that they are trying to time things in a way that is strategic to hardware and to other devices that they may or may not have coming. And
they've got production.
Can I give you
associated with the stuff that you can't talk about?
Can I give you a little bit of an insight of why I think half the people are 49, 50, whatever they said, 49, 50 million haven't upgraded?
Yeah.
I don't think it's one game that's going to push it. I don't think it's going to be PlayStation or Xbox that pushes it. What's going to push it is three things. Number one, Call of Duty. Number two, Grand Theft Auto, I will say, is big. And number three is Fortnite. If you play those games and you don't need to upgrade and you can just play them on the Xbox One, those numbers are not going to move drastically. The free-to-play games, as we've known for years, completely changed everything when it comes to gaming. People are playing these things on their iPads, on their old systems, and they don't need to upgrade because those games work just fine there. And they're going to continue. Like the new Call of Duty is cross-platform. So people don't need to upgrade. That is sure. Going to be honest, those are the biggest things to me, at least that need to happen before the big exodus from last gen happens.
And also price. I agree with that. Price needs to come down too.
GTA 6 appeals to Call of Duty gamers as well. GTA 6 is going to move that needle.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with what you said in terms of those free to play. I mean, we've seen Fortnite consistently at the top. We see Call of Duty. Those games are consistently up top, including Warzone.
And Minecraft.
In Minecraft, but I guess at some point that nozzle is going to be shut off for those players, and they may say, "Hey, I'm good where I'm at. I'm going to stick here, and I don't care about getting the PS6." But I do think that we're going to see that nozzle get turned off. I mean, we already know with Grand Theft Auto 6. I imagine, happy to be wrong. I tell people all the time, I'm not above being wrong. But I have to imagine that next year when Grand Theft Auto 6 releases, we are going to see a massive, massive spike in PlayStation hardware selling. A massive spike.
I agree. I think PlayStation have the marketing rights as well, right?
But they haven't said that. I believe so.
I don't know if they do for 6.
Yeah, I don't know if they do.
I think in an interview, the CEO he mentioned about having GTA marketing rights, but I could be wrong. But
did they have it at the show they had? Not the state of play. Did they have it at the financial thing? Like, because they've done that before, where they show the marketing rights they have to like Hogwarts Legacy last year in their financials to show like this is going to help us. Did they have GTA on there? I'm asking genuinely. I don't know.
No, not that I remember. But it might be coming out next year, so maybe they'll save it for another quarterly.
Next year's report.
And I want to say this to everybody in the chat that's saying that like they don't believe what I'm saying about the free to play move. Like there was a study that just came out, right? That 60% of entire gameplay in 2023 went to games that are 6 years and older, and that's all of gaming. Fortnite, Roblox, League of Legends, Minecraft, GTA 4 represented 27% of all playtime in 2023, and those all those games, most of them are free to play. Those games are the ones that are holding the generation. You know, everybody made fun of the Series S, but it's these free to play games.
I agree with what you're saying 100%. I agree with what you're saying 100%. As well, right? I think the big mover that is going to factor in, aside from those free to plays that you mentioned, I still go back and I will continue to hammer on is Grand Theft Auto 6. That game is going to be, I mean, monumental whenever we've seen the numbers of what Grand Theft Auto 5 has done and what they've learned over the last 10 years. I think that is going to just
is it crazy? Listen, and Nib, I want to hear what you have to say. Just want to throw this little caveat out there. I'll throw the volleyball up, see who spikes it down. If we're actually going to go all the way till we say the end of 25, right? When you have Grand Theft Auto 6, which is seemingly only on next gen consoles, you know, at this point, you're talking Xbox may be coming out with their next Xbox and rumored to be 26, Sony in 27 or 28. I mean, I could see them just having like the Fortnites of the world. They're going to stay. I think they're going to stay on PS4 and Xbox One the entire generation. I don't think you see a change. Maybe. I mean, what do you guys think? Will we not see that gravitational pull until maybe the PS6 era?
I'm gonna take this one if I can, then I'm gonna shut up and let somebody else have it. I think that for the PlayStation side, we will see that upgrade. For the Xbox side, I don't know that we will. And I'm not trying to sound like an Xbox hater at all. But when we looked at the meeting that took place, I called a business meeting, a business strategy update. There was a huge difference in that tone of meeting that took place with the two Sony CEOs and the Xbox sit-down that took place with Phil Spencer, Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, and the lady that was interviewing them. There was a drastic difference in the communication to the consumers of your ecosystem between the two. And I do think that some of that communication is starting to trickle down outside of just those of us who are involved in podcasts and chasing trophies and all this other shit. I do think that communication is getting out because we're seeing it in the numbers. And so when it comes to Xbox console in general, and Zucker, said a couple things. I don't know anything about their new console, but you as Xbox are going to have to do one hell of a job of convincing people why they should buy another one of your consoles when in the last 4 years we have barely had a game that makes it outside of 30 FPS so far on release. You're going to have to do something to show why they should buy that. And then I think on the other hand, when we have PlayStation, for the most part, I've had games, Final Fantasy 16 ran a little rough outside in combat, Rise of the Ronin had some differences, but on every single one of those games, I have had graphical option after graphical option for me as the consumer to say, hey, when the next box comes out, I'm going to buy it. And I'm going to continue to buy it until it's no longer offered because they have earned my trust and they have mapped out what they plan to do as a company. On the Xbox side, I don't think you're going to see those upgrades, which is why they've struggled to sell. And now I'm shutting down.
I will say as an Xbox, like obviously everybody knows I enjoy Xbox. And one of the reasons why I do enjoy Xbox, and I haven't been quiet about this, is because of the connective to PC, console. I get to go wherever the hell I want. If they took that away, I would stop being an Xbox fan. That's just personally my opinion and my choice of how I game. But I will say that what's going to happen is not what people think. Xbox is not trying to sell their console. That is already known. Like that to me, that's just almost obvious at this point. They do not care to sell the console. It's 5-1 right now. And it's going to be like that because they are going to start putting stuff on PlayStation. I know they said, it's just a few games. It's not a few games.
No.
It is going to be, the way Phil Spencer talked, it's going everywhere.
I agree.
I'm telling you right now, it's the ABK thing. That changed everything. Everything. The reason why they were buying studios is because they needed manpower. They just needed manpower to make games, and now they tripled in size. ABK was bigger than Xbox by 3 times. That is the whole point. Now that's why the studios are shutting down if they're not performing. They're like, we already have the manpower to do this. That to me, that's the whole thing. Is that the console isn't It's not the priority when it comes to their games. It's going everywhere. Satya has said he hates exclusives. They're going to go everywhere. The whole thing is make games, bring them out. That's what we're going to do. Go to the biggest audience. If that includes PlayStation, they're going to go there. They don't. They don't care.
Real quick, and then I'm turning it over to someone else. So, do you think that going forward, Sony's technically going to have 3 showcases per year, 2 showcases at a state of play, meaning that Xbox games are likely to see that pivot and going over? Would you? I mean, what as an Xbox fan, right? And I know that you primarily play on PC, but do you see that going forward of that communication going to where, hey, Sony technically has 3 shows now because they're going to be getting everything from Xbox. Like, what do you think about that?
No, there's going to be an Xbox. There's going to be an Xbox show that is fully Xbox. Xbox is PC. PC is Xbox. Xbox is going to be everything. That's going to be the brand, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to have everything out there and be a third-party publisher. Sony's going to have 1 show a year, and I honestly think that Sony, because they've talked about this, it is not sustainable to do these AAA games that they're doing. They have said that publicly. It is not sustainable. They're going to change a lot. And I think a lot, and this is what I'm saying, that gaming is going to change. It's not just Xbox. It's going to be PlayStation that changes drastically. And I'm looking forward to Ghost of Tsushima. I'm looking forward to Wolverine, probably number 1 because I'm a comic book nerd. But I think everything's going to change. That's just my thought. Like, I think Sony's going to look a lot different. And the one thing
I think it'll change. I don't think it'll change as drastic as you just made it, Zucker.
I don't think Xbox is the main competition. Do you know what I think the main competition is going to be?
Next
year's Switch. Next year's Switch is going to be the main competition to Sony. That's what's
going
going
to
on.
Yeah. Thoughts. He's been trying to chime in for.
Go ahead, Nib. Yeah, Nib. Let's hear what you got to say, Nib.
I don't even know if my mic is working, but I don't think they said it's not sustainable. I just think they said they want to increase sustainability and basically reduce development costs, right? But we do, from the Insomniac leaks, we actually have insight into the profitability of their first-party games, and by and large, nearly all of them are actually highly profitable. The problem is, the release cadence of things. So you have, you have 23 studios now. Well, actually, I think they closed 1 or 2. But say you have 21 studios going from 11 studios, and games take time to develop. So they have a massive influx of studios that they're having to front the costs for, which sort of confuses the outlook on profitability, because suddenly they're spending double, but these games take 5, 6, 7 years to make, and we don't see the recoup on costs and losses and profitability until they actually release, right? Most of the new studios they've acquired have not released games yet. But if you look at the list of, first party sales, it tells you the exact amount of revenue that they made, the costs that they, the development costs, etc. And most of them are actually profitable by orders of a few $100 million. And I think that will definitely be the case for, Helldivers 2, Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2, etc. But I think to this point about sort of adoption rates, and why PS4 is still, taking up quite a share, I think probably a wider thing is just the economics of it. Because, if you look at the PS5 now, it's what, $400, $500, like more than midway through a generation. This time last generation, life cycle aligned, the PS4 could be bought for $250, right? Even though it was $300 RRP, it could actually be bought for $250 for the 500 gig version. And there was no digital only version of the PS4.
And the PS5, Nib, just a quick note here. The PS5 is beating, in the same time span, beating the PS4 by 8%.
Exactly. So if you think about it, you're really comparing, because we got to compare it with the disc version, right? You're really comparing $250 versus $500. And then even if you do the sort of appreciation for, inflation, it's still far and away more expensive than it was this time line aligned. So I think, for that sort of excess adoption, you need impulse by territory pricing, right? Which we're just not there yet. Like, this is not the price for casuals. This is really priced still for enthusiast gamers, which is also why I think one of the metrics that they showcased at their business meeting was their current users are spending far more time playing games I think it's because a higher percentage of PS5 owners right now are early adopters or enthusiast gamers, because you kind of have to be if you're going to be spending $500 on a console. You're not going to be a throwaway casual. There might be a few in there, but yeah, I really think to broaden that casual market, they need to get the pricing down, and maybe something like GTA 6 will also do it because it has that mass appeal. I can't remember how much the last game sold. I think it was like 100 and something million. So an insane amount of interest will be around.
You're
that
talking
game.
about GTA 5, that one? I think GTA 5 sold 200 million.
Yeah, 180 million, I think, last I checked. But yeah, so absolutely. But I think to coincide with that, it will have to be some sort of pricing cut, because still this pricing is not to the casual demographic. It's still sort of centered around the mid to high enthusiast here. And until they can rectify that, I'm not sure how much of that broader appeal it will have. But it's still shocking, and it's still really impressive that they're kind of matching or exceeding, in the United States at least, the PS4 launch, and even more impressive when you consider that the PS5 was massively had stock issues throughout the entirety of COVID, during the pandemic essentially, which is why we see such a huge increase in hardware growth in fiscal year 2022 and 23. So yeah, I don't know, we'll see, but I think they need to work on getting that pricing down. And I agree with DS that GTA 6 could be the mover and shaker to kind of push along that adoption.
I liked a lot of what you said, Nib. That was very well put. I think that was very informative. I enjoyed what you said, and I know you're saying that they're all profitable, which obviously we just saw the numbers, but we also got to look at what's been going on the last few months, right? Like they had an 8% layoff at PlayStation, where it was 900 people. Insomniac, who sold 11 million Spider-Man 2, which is insanely good, and I enjoyed that game. They laid off people too. So there's a lot of stuff changing and shifting that we don't know about. Like 10,000 jobs have been lost in 2023 in gaming alone, like layoffs. I think it's insane to think.
Well, I mean, a lot, the other thing too is, again, everyone has short-term memory. When we were all stuck in our homes for 2 years, okay, the gaming industry boomed. You saw people were hiring like mad, and it's not just the gaming industry, but that's what we're talking about tonight. And now you're seeing, as people that has changed. Things are going back out there. You see the subscription services like Game Pass and PS Plus becoming stagnant. So now you have a situation where we needed to have all those people on hand, Zucker. This explains a part of it, not all of those 10,000 jobs, but that is a part of it right now. That's also documented.
Yeah, I agree.
And I mean, go ahead, Nib.
I think based on what their CEO said. It's all about efficiencies, right? Because even if you're making a profit, since when did any business ever say, we're making too much? Like enough is never enough, and they will always want to make more.
Maybe Costco.
Maybe Costco.
Costco's like the only one I can think of in my head. That's why they're
I'm not turning away more profit, I can tell you that. But yeah, so at the end of the day, it's cost efficiencies, and now they are at more risk because they have so many more studios that they need to cover the overheads for. And Xbox is even worse, right? I think now they've closed a few studios, probably about 38 studios or something now, up from 6 to 38, so it's a completely different sort of cost ramification that they have to deal with. But I do think that is why they're sort of tightening the screws, because they can't forever just increase these costs when they have such risk with so many studios on top.
And we can't like blanket state all studio closures and head cuts for the same reasons. There's a call for nuance here, like for example, Sony kind of making cuts, and a bit like Square Enix making cuts. They're largely there's diminishing returns. There's more and more diminishing returns as inflation continues to crush industries, and that's not a result of consolidation or acquisitions on Sony's part. It sort of is. It's they consolidated and acquired during lockdown, but nowhere near to the egregious level of others, where a lot of the cutbacks are simply a proactive shift that reflects a struggling economy to improve return on investment. Whereas, for example, replacing 10,000 people with 10,000 people, now that was just crazy to me. Like what I saw Microsoft do when trying to acquire Activision Blizzard.
Yeah,
they literally bought 10,000 people and then made a plan to cut within a year 10,000 people. It's
interesting, Willie. It's interesting because, like, if you look, a lot of the studio closures from PlayStation over the last, say, decade have actually been UK based. So London studio and Evolution, etc. And that doesn't surprise me as someone who obviously does business in the UK. It's like our rent rates are astronomical. And then we have Brexit sort of
cost of living is crazy right now.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then one of the interesting things about the business meeting was the Herman Hulst. He was talking about the expense of developing in California, and I thought that was very oddly specific, but also interesting because they are literally pointing out now individual locations and territories where, because of the whatever increase in interest and whatever tech bubbles and things like that, and geopolitics locally. Things have just become really expensive to do business in specific areas. So I do think we might see more shifts geographically, just shifting things around and moving their studios around to kind of again increase efficiency.
And just reminding people of London, studio. People are very quick to go, oh, so Sony are doing it too. The London studio was terrible. It was a terrible blunder on Sony's part, and I've criticised Sony quite heavily for how they've set certain studios up to fail. Like London Studio, it was assigned to a relatively niche specific product, VR, right? So their games would naturally sell less anyway. So they were kind of setting them up to fail, it felt like. Instead of getting them to work on a getaway revamp, which would have been amazing. They're like, no, we've got GTA. There's no need to compete with that.
Yeah,
we'll keep you stuck in the little. As good as Blood and Truth Art was, and as talented as the studio is, they're not going to make the returns that Sony are going to look on the spreadsheet and go, yeah, this studio just isn't worth it. It's just not worth it. And
Wooly, they made a lot of SingStar, right? And then Sony stopped doing SingStar in 2020.
Yeah. They made many mistakes. Sony have made some terrible mistakes with certain studios and certain IP. Like they've really screwed up in certain areas. And London Studio it was understandable that they closed them down because of just the terrible decisions that Sony made with that studio. And it's a damn shame, bro. It's a damn shame.
Let me do this.
Yeah, that's not was a good.
I want to get
SingStar was a good one to impress the girls at uni. I gotta say.
There you go. Hey, Brap, I want to get your take on this, and then I want to do a little bit of a side thought, another topic here. Brap, go ahead.
I'm sorry. What?
No,
my thoughts on what?
Your thoughts on state of
we talked about a lot of different things.
We did. We were kind of all over the place.
I was getting told state of play, and then
we went state of play, and we dabbled a little bit in the business segment meeting.
I enjoyed the state of play more than you guys. I was a bit surprised. I came in here, everyone's like, boo, fuck this.
Well, you know why, Nib? I think you looked at it as a state of play, which is the way I kind of looked at it. I wasn't stomping my feet, and I didn't light a match after the show either. I didn't think it was anything spectacular. I looked at it and I said, okay, there's Concord. I like that. Ballard of Ventara. I like that. I enjoyed what I saw from PSVR2 because if they don't show PSVR2, I noticed nobody's talking about PSVR2. And you might go, well, Mooch, I don't play PSVR2. I don't care. But everybody would have commented on it if they were like, where's PSVR2? So
dude, those two games looked incredible. I was just saying when I was doing the stream, like, yo, that Behemoth game looked crazy. It's really good fidelity for VR and that other Aliens
vibes.
And Survios, they make really good VR games, and that they're making an Alien game that is awesome because they made some really good. They made the I think they made the fighting game. They made the who was it? The Rocky one. I think they made that. I believe they made that one. But I was really impressed with the two VR games finally. But yeah, it's also discounted finally too. During the days of play. So
it looked very heavily inspired by that Oculus game that's done the works. It's done the rounds.
Oh, Wrath of Asgard's Wrath.
Yeah, it was like a different skin of Wrath of Asgard. It had the same mechanics and everything.
Yeah, I was trying to look up the other game that showed up at the show was the wind. What was it? Not the wind beneath my wing.
Meet.
Where
winds meet.
I thought I thought that looked good too. And I mean, like, don't get me wrong,
like a male version of a Stoneblade.
Yeah.
You know,
100%,
I thought it showed really, really well. And if again, Astro. Everyone, I'm not saying it was the best, but Astrobot was a big hit too. I'm just saying. It wasn't a
little Mooch. Did that look a little too sharp? It looked a little PS5 Pro-ish.
It did a little bit.
Looked a little PS5 Pro. So I was looking at my 1080p screen. I'm like, this is shimmering a little bit.
Mooch, I'm not gonna lie. I was saying to you before the show that nothing appealed to me except Monster Hunter. But I've been watching Astrobot as we've been talking. I've been watching it properly. The reason I watched it initially in a bad mood because the state of play put me in a bad mood. So I was watching Astrobot in a bad mood. But I tell you what, the more I'm watching that gameplay and the charm of the character, and he's more charming than Sackboy. Astrobot is the most charming video game character I think to ever be made. It's like he's flipping amazing. And
did you not? Were you not that hyped for Ballad of Antara?
I thought Ballad of Antara was...
kind of, but it's kind of falling back into we've got Elden Ring around the corner, and although it looks good, I was a little bit let down by Lords of the Fallen, so I'm kind of a little bit cautious about it, and also it's kind of going back to that was the most unique out of all of the third-person action RPGs shown at the State of Play tonight. The rest kind of gave me that almost that, like, what's that? It's got a weird name to it. It's like that Chinese action RPG that released like last year.
Oh yeah, Wolong or something.
It wasn't Wolong. It was isn't that Japanese? Isn't that?
Oh, are you talking about the one that's not out yet? The one that's still...
it was last year. There was like that Chinese game that released for like 40 quid on PlayStation, and you were this running thing. It was like a hack and slash Chinese RPG.
I don't remember.
And they kind of give me those kind of Korean Chinese vibes where you're not quite sure if it's vaporware or not, and whether it's actually.
I'll tell you why I thought the Ballad was, superseded that, was because I thought the actual visuals and art direction, and because there's a scene, in Elden Ring where you come out into the open world and you're kind of in the middle of the cliff, and there's that beautiful sort of vista where you can see all the little locations in the background, and I always, love that particular visual. And I feel like this Ballad of whatever it's called kind of did something similar.
It gave me heavy Lords of the Fallen vibes with that scene. I was thinking of Zon 1 Sword 7 and Sword and Fairy. I can't pronounce it, but it was that Yarn Sword, whatever you call it. That was a Chinese action RPG, and it wasn't that game. It wasn't Ballad that gave me that vibe. It was the other games, but Ballad was the most unique looking one. It kind of gave me Elden Ring vibes / Lords of the Fallen vibes. But
yeah,
I don't know, man. Like I'm cautiously optimistic about that game, but it didn't like blow me away, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think everybody's opinions has been completely spot on. I don't think anybody has said anything. It doesn't matter, even if I don't completely agree. I think everyone's opinion is valid and has made a really good point. Let me ask this question to Jez. Jez, you are always on your channel. Every time a new PSVR2 game comes out, you're generally streaming it. So now that there's going to be this possibility that Sony is, I think it's more than the possibility, certifying the adapter, bringing the PSVR2 to PC, does this help excel the product past the console space? Does this move that needle? Does that get more games coming to PS5 for PSVR2 now that it's going to be compatible with PC? What do you think about that move?
Yeah, I don't think that they are. I don't really think that is going. It's first of all, we got to see what the compatibility is with the PC. If it could run the Steam VR or Oculus apps, which I hope obviously they should do, because that's where the PC support will be if they properly support PC. That will open up the opportunities to experience those games and kind of add more life to it. I don't know how that really benefits if they want to do it on the PlayStation. I think the first thing is the price. That price has to come down too.
Yes.
But I think it does extend the value of it depending on what that support is. I hear that the PC kit that they were going to use, that there's some sort of PC kit officially in there that they're making, that will work. So I think that would be a good to kind of use that, because I think the tech in there was something that, as a PC VR, like that is something that's could really excel because of the tech that used. And if it could be utilized on PC, that would be great. So that I don't know if it's going to bring a flood of games to the PSVR 2. I'm just glad that they put some games out there. I think it took them too long to get those games. I'm like, that should have been something last summer or fall we should have had, like, with a price drop or something. I just think like it's taking too long to get those unique games that take advantage of the high fidelity of the PSVR 2, and we got a lot of Oculus ports, which I was really disappointed in how Sony treated their PSVR 2. I think they kind of abandoned it. And it's good seeing those two games, though. I think they look pretty good, and they may take advantage of it. But the PC thing maybe add extended life to it as well. But we'll see what that support is. We don't know if it's just going to be, hey, your PC recognizes the VR, and now you go have to hack something or do something to make it work. Then it's not really effective. But if it natively supports those two VR programs, then it's something to consider. But again, I think the price drop, it needs to stay at that price. They did $100 off for Days of Play. It has to stay at that, I think.
If I could take a quick second, I want to say shout out to the Claymores for joining the Mooch Maniac family members. That means a lot to me. Shout out to Mash as well. Mash for all those donated subs. Thank you, Mash. I know you're usually listening while you're at work. Shout out to the great Domino Zero. He says, at least Astrobot looked good. Surex Man says, I liked Astrobot. Reminded me of Firefox a little bit, and Ratchet and Clank, and a little Crash Bandicoot. I think it had a little bit of everything there, Surex Man. I think that's why it kind of hits home for a lot of different people, a lot of different gamers. Danell Brown, he goes, Mooch, you need to talk to your... He's always making fun of my New York Giants. Your tight end, he goes, he's over here doing music videos now. And gamers are never happy. I would not show you all anything. So shout out to Danell Brown. Raji says, Sony partnered with Konami. Konami partnered with Bloober. You can criticize them for Asper. There's something.
Konami makes bad decisions. We know that.
That we definitely know. So I completely agree with you there. So... I do want to ask this question here to Nib. Nib, you had written me earlier today, and you were talking about PlayStation's strategy. I don't know if, Nib, you were talking about necessarily their PC strategy with what, and we're going to get into this. And David, I know you're chomping at the bit to get into the PlayStation business segment meeting as well. But Nib, what do you think when you saw, read, and heard about PlayStation's PC strategy? Will PC gamers buy a PS5, or will they continue to wait for a Steam release?
It's interesting because there's been so much conversation about this, and for me, it's like the messaging that they've delivered about what their strategy is for me the same one that they've had for several years now. In their previous business meetings, in the Herman Holst interviews, and I feel like almost like the maybe, I don't know if it's just Twitter, maybe it's on other social medias. I don't use other social medias, but it's almost like the social media narrative has twisted it to be more than it is. But PlayStation has always been actually quite clear on what, how they envisage the PC thing, which is as additive revenue, and whether you think it will work or not, as a means to kind of incentivize PS5 to even PC gamers. And, I heard a lot of conversation including from journalists about why would anyone give up their superior PC and go to PS5? But I think they're kind of missing the forest for the trees because, and I made a tweet about this. I went through the Steam hardware survey, and I went through tech power up GPU rankings. And Digital Foundry, they did a test where they sort of coined that the PS5 was most equivalent to a 6700 vanilla. Yep. And that was there. And when you look on the Steam hardware survey, 75% of the GPUs that people use are either similarly equivalent in performance or far less. In fact, the vast majority were less performant than the PS5. So when those people who are talking about the 4090s, etc., the higher upper echelon of PC users, maybe they wouldn't switch, but they're a tiny minority. I think less than 1% had a 4090, whereas I think 25% had a GPU that was notably more performant than the PS5, and 75% had one that was similar or far less. Right. So actually, even on Steam, a lot of the consumer base that's there would benefit from having a PS5 either as additional or a replacement, right? They would actually get more performance for it. this is just a PS5. Obviously, the Pro is coming out as well, which broadens things even more. But I think what people don't realize is I don't think PlayStation is expecting loads of PC gamers to move to PS5 either. Even a small margin of them would still be, a revenue incentive, because when you bring someone over to a console ecosystem, you're not just getting a few first-party sales. You're getting a 30% cut of revenue on every digital item sold on that console, right? So from microtransactions, DLC, content, games, you name it, and potentially, peripherals and all sorts of other things as well. So there's a much wider, long-term and broader revenue benefit to them to get people over to an ecosystem. And guess what? Even if they didn't pull over a PC gamer onto PS5, they get a staggered release and they'll still potentially sell the game anyway. So either way, it's like a benefit. And what they don't risk, which is what we're kind of seeing with Xbox based on the data and the software sales splits, is they don't risk trading PC for PlayStation for PC sale, or losing someone from the PlayStation ecosystem to the PC, where they not only do not have the 30% cut, but they actually lose the 30% cut on Steam as well. So, again, PlayStation is only interested in additive revenue, revenue that they might not otherwise get, not trading a higher value customer for a less value one. And I think, maybe people, they're not, they don't know in terms of like what most PC gamers are using hardware wise, and then, there's a lot of crossed wires.
Yeah, and I want to, so I'll go to you on this, Zucker, because I want to get your take on it. Like I said, I haven't got a chance to catch up with you in a while. It's great to have you on the show. I've been saying this for, I don't know how long now. I think maybe even 2017. The double dip strategy works. And, when you have the formula, the IP, the recipe, no matter which business you're in, and everybody wants that recipe, formula, or IP, I mean, you kind of, as long as, like I said, as long as it's a quality product, you can kind of dictate your terms. A lot of people that are in the community still consistently think that, well, PlayStation is just going to do exactly what Xbox did. And realistically, you said it yourself, I think, Zucker, you're like, realistic, Switch may be PlayStation's next console competitor moving into next year and forward. So the point of the matter is that why is that such a jagged pill to kind of swallow when you see the numbers here and PlayStation 5 doing what it's doing? PlayStation and hardware is a very important part. You have your PSVR2s, your controllers, your various headsets. Now they're selling monitors. PlayStation really does want to capitalize on that hardware. Now they're going to have a PS5 Pro, worst kept secret ever. So, I mean, Zucker, what do you think when you saw what happened and what came out of the numbers from the business segment? Was anything shocking to you, or was this just kind of par for the course? And you go, of course, PlayStation is going to continue to double dip as long as they can.
Well, I like what Nib said, a lot of what he said, but I actually think that I think it's a bad move. Number one, because if you look at everybody, people that have PCs are just going to wait at this point. They're not gonna fly over to PlayStation to play a single game. And maybe you're talking about microtransactions, all of that. Well, those people are already established with those microtransaction games on the PC. So why would they play them on the PlayStation if their friends are all on PC? And the same thing with PlayStation. So, how are people are going to go? Like that's just my whole thing. And if you look at what happened with Hellblade,
I can answer that if you want.
Good. Yeah, go ahead. Answer that
if you want. So say you're part of the 75%. I think I calculated it was like 60% that was below the performance on Steam. That was below the performance of the PS5, right? So, PS5 is not that powerful anyway, to be honest. So if you're on a PC that's already below that, then you're kind of long in the tooth, right? You're due for an upgrade. So what are your options? You can upgrade your PC rig. Cool. There's a lot of PC gamers who are into PC gaming, not even for the performance. They like the freedom of, flexibility, mods, changing settings, running games how they want. But there are also other people who would, they think, okay, so I played this PlayStation game on Steam, and I love these games that I hadn't played before. I'm due for an upgrade. I have kids, or I want more convenience, or I want a different style of gaming, which was me. I used to be a PC gamer main, and then as time went on, I moved on to console, right? And then it's like, if they're due for an upgrade anyway, the value proposition you get in console hardware, which generally have lower margins, right? Like oftentimes they're even loss leaders back in the day. It just makes sense that you might convert over because you're already due for an upgrade. And again, I agree with you. I think most PC gamers will just wait, but there will be certainly a minority who might actually make the transition, and that minority is enough because that minority is going to be worth hundreds of millions, potentially billions of dollars, just because of the broad spectrum of revenue they can bring. So I think like either way, it's a good strategy. And then if you look on the Xbox side, what they've been seeing is the console market share massively diminish, right? And we can see evidence of the Xbox gamers moving over to PC, but even little things like, for example, Starfield, previous Bethesda games had the vast majority of their splits on console, whereas Starfield, I think it was announced that 67% of the sales were on PC. So we can already see a big migration. Even
that's a bad example to me because Bethesda has always been a PC-centric developer, always. The PC's been number one always for them, and that's one of the reasons. I mean, Todd Howard said it himself. He said, we would not have gone to Xbox or have them buy us if it wasn't for PC, because that has been their biggest seller always.
So you say that, but 86% of Skyrim sales were on console.
Yeah, and so was Oblivion. Oblivion was big, but again, they're very big on the mods. They're very big on sales, like over there. They just enjoy PC in general. Like Bethesda has just always been like that.
But what I mean is, if you look at the actual sales splits, even Fallout 76, I think it was 70-something% on console, right? So if you look at how did we go from
the mods don't support Bethesda at all. Free mods don't support Bethesda at all. It's the people will continue playing the game and for the mods, but there's no in-game monetization in Skyrim apart from the Creation Club, and nobody uses that. So, the majority.
I'll bring up the exact data in a minute because I made a tweet about it with the figures. But the thing is, even though I do agree with that, like there is a lot of longevity in the PC community with Bethesda games in particular because of the mods. But if you look at the actual sales splits, especially within the first year or two or whatever, from all the data that we have, the overwhelming majority of Bethesda game sales were on console still. So it's interesting now that for the first time ever, the vast majority are on PC. That is actually breaking trend with the last 3 or 4 releases. So clearly there has been some sort of shift, despite, whatever. We could theorize about what is the reason for that shift. How did we go from 80% console sales to 70% PC sales?
Well, I'm looking at the numbers right now, and it says that 82%. I don't know if that's the number you were talking about, because Skyrim sold 60 million units or surpassed 60 million units in total sales.
Yeah,
and it's saying that 82% its total units is on Microsoft platforms. So 82%, and I think they're talking not just console. I think they're talking Windows. So like I don't know if they're putting it in just that platform, because that's what I'm looking at now with the numbers. Because if it was 82% on just console, that's fucking insane. Because then that's that. Yeah, I didn't hear that at all. I heard that it was Microsoft platforms, and I was like, let me double check that. So I made sure, and it's not the console, it's the Microsoft platform. So they're talking Windows in general.
No, because PC they separated. They gave a different split for PC.
I'm looking at the overall one right now, like the overall of every unit sold, and that's what this is everything, all including PlayStation, including everything.
Yeah.
So this is how much it's sold.
So I'm talking about the first month of sales. So I'm comparing first month to first month. So the first month debut for Starfield versus the first month debut for Skyrim.
Oh, okay. I mean, I don't know about the first month. I was looking at overall. Like that's okay, me. Like if it sold 60 million, I was about to say 60 million in the first month. Can you imagine? But for me, it's to kind of get back on what the topic was, is if it's Sony's strategy. I mean, if you guys saw what happened with Helldivers when they were like, you need to create a PSN account. What happened? PC gamers destroyed it and killed the reviews, everything. Like PC gamers do not want to create a PSN account. They don't trust it, especially after like one of the worst hacks in digital history in 2011. They do not trust PSN whatsoever. A lot of people don't. And that is just what it is. If you like study tech or anything, and like I have a computer science degree, and we studied that specific hack for this. Like, it was like of what not to do during that time. So it's a very popular thing, and a lot of people don't like it, and that's fine. And if people don't want to use it, they're not going to. I think PC gamers are a little bit of a different breed than when it comes to console. And you're talking about, like, if you're a parent and you want to do this, like, that's why I think the PlayStation Portable is actually really cool for people, because parents can't get their TV, but they can still play their PS5 on it. And the other thing is, handhelds are selling decently. Like this Steam Deck's I think over 2 million, and this is like with them selling out completely for a year and a half, where people were waiting 6 months to get one.
I don't see that's the only thing. I don't, and that's fine. I think a push for handheld, in addition to, so you have the Steam Store, your PC, and a Steam Deck. Fine, that's totally fine. And what PlayStation's rumored, and maybe Xbox rumored as well, to have their own handhelds that go along with their consoles moving forward, I think is fine. But sitting here and saying the Asus ROG Ally is at 1 million in sales and the Steam Deck's at 2. Those are small numbers. I mean, those are extremely small.
They're not for. I don't think they're for us as I don't think like us here. I don't think it's for. I own one. I've played a lot.
I own a Steam Deck.
Because we're enthusiasts too, right? Like, we want to see what it's all about,
right?
And that's the way I see it. But I do see a lot of people from my work, especially, who are parents that have a Steam Deck. I've seen the PlayStation Portable 4 times at work, and I'm like, that is so badass looking. And I made fun of it. I was like, this thing is stupid. And then I saw it, and I was like, shit, that's kind of cool.
You got to appreciate, though, the fact that the PS Portal completely destroyed these professionals who expected it to flop. It destroyed their predictions, and it's completely outsold. It's done so well performance-wise. Is because
it's the highest selling accessory, NPD.
I was one of those people that made fun of it. I was one of those people that like, this isn't going to do shit. And then I saw it, and I was like, never mind. Actually, this is cool.
This is the point, right? The point is that it's because they've kept PlayStation 5 as the center of, and everything they do is to incentivize people to the PlayStation platform. And everything is built around growth, and like Nim mentioned, additive revenue, additive growth, not merely moving parts and cannibalizing parts in on themselves, which Microsoft has been infamous and notorious in doing, and a really bad job of doing it. And you gotta appreciate that this whole conversation is, again, going back to the fact that is PC day and date a good decision or a bad decision? Why would Steam Deck even be a factor to consider as a positive in that regard? Why would you want to set the requirement of a day one release to be compatible with handheld PC gaming hardware? Like, you just purposely, like, again, Hideaki in the meeting just yesterday, in the Sony meeting, said very, very clearly that they have built from the ground up a hardware stack that enables them to curate specifically made high quality experiences, and they don't want to compromise that by going.
I don't know about that. To me, I feel if Sony was going to be real about their strategy and be like, hey, you know what? We really do care about the PlayStation experience, they would not have all their live service games be day and date on PC. Hellblade, Helldivers 2 dominated. No, I mean, Helldivers 2 is where it is because of PC. Like, that is a known fact.
Helldivers 2 isn't a curated experience trying to push a technical boundary. It's an experience designed specifically to appeal to a mass multiplayer demographic. It's not pushing
and sell microtransactions,
Yeah, there's a call for nuance here, mate, and you can't blanket apply a live service game designed around the live service model. You can't blanket apply that example to curate a tentpole flagship titles that are narrative driven, AAA, story focused, and trying to push immersion in gaming to a new level. Like, for example, like Hellblade on Xbox, right? You can't kind of apply the live service model to all games across the board. I think this is specifically what this isn't news. I don't like Nib said. We've known for 5 years now. Herman Holster's tripled down on the fact that where live service games are concerned, they will most likely be day and date. But as for every other game, it's strategic in whether they choose to go day and date or not. And the likelihood is there'll be a double dip, a waterfall. Herman Hulst describes it as a waterfall effect, that you maximize return on investment on the initial sale, and then you can incentivize not only double dips from people who already bought the game, but new customers too on other platforms after the sales.
And I don't mind that. I think you guys are correct. I think Sony has been extremely open about what they're going to be doing. Like they've said it. Like this is going to come 2 years or a year and a half after launch when it comes to storage.
My mind that Paul Tassi doing his when they've all
no. And I think people are talking like because I think when they're like all of them are coming is because a lot of the studios were put like when this stuff was being reported were pushed to live service a lot. Like that was Jim Ryan's doing, and then they went back on that. We've discussed that a little bit here. And I think a lot of those games were going to be multi-platform, right? Because it's live service. That's what they were going to concentrate on. Now that they pulled back on it, I do think it's going to take some time. And the other thing I also think, and this is problems that Xbox ran into, and Sony did too, is bringing it to PC. Like, I got to say, like, Days Gone, all those games that have come out are some of the best ports I've ever seen. Ghost of Tsushima is magnificent on the PC, and Nixxes is probably one of their best studios they got in my mind. Absolutely. Because they absolutely kill it. I think they just don't have the manpower to like be like, all right, all these games are coming day and date to PC. It takes time. Like that just takes time.
So, yeah, but you mentioned the thing about development. I think that's a really poignant point as well, right? Because
definitely,
I think the development benefit is a huge part of it, because when you have staggered releases, you essentially don't thin out your development studio, right? So if you're working on multi-platforms or PC and whatever, you're essentially spreading your studio thinner, right? You're spreading your resources thinner because a portion of the studio will always be doing porting work instead of content curation or single platform optimization and
exactly.
And the thing is with PS5 as well, everything about Xbox's their development tools and the way they've designed the current model with the GDK and everything is harmonious between PC and Xbox development. But the problem with that is when you have tools that essentially where you don't need to do as much fine granular work, and it essentially does auto porting to a degree, is you lose some of that fine tune optimization. Whereas the PS5, it doesn't even use DirectX. It doesn't even use the PC DirectX. It uses their own custom proprietary API. I think the PS5's one is called AGC and AGCX. Whereas the PS4...
Well, we already know that PlayStation's development kit is one of the best, and this is one of the best documented ways of doing it. I mean, people across the industry have talked about this. Xbox started over with the Series X. So all documentation needed to be done, tools needed to be relearned, everything like that. It took a lot of time, and to be quite honest with you, I personally don't think the tools are up to snuff even when the developers are using them. And that goes across the board this generation for me. I don't think that they're crazy. I think Sony has a lot of stuff that's insane, and you can get like 80 frames on God of War. Like that stuff is that is cool. They are very well documented, and people know that. But Xbox doesn't have that. This is why I say that Switch 2, because they are working directly with NVIDIA, is going to be the biggest competitor, because DLSS and all that, if you look at the stocks, everything, NVIDIA is dominating the world basically in tech right now. And it's because their shit works to a T and then some. So that's why I think if all third-party games play on the Switch, I'm just saying, man, like watch out with their exclusives and how big of an adoption rate they have. That's the big. Everybody's looking at Sony and Xbox, and Nintendo's just in the background going like, "Yeah, just fucking wait." That's just my mind, like in my head. I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying that's me.
Let me get the great David Faulkner here. Dave, I know this is really kind of your expertise, especially when we're talking about the dollars and cents and strategy. What was your takeaway from yesterday's big meeting? A lot of eyes were on that meeting yesterday.
Yeah, an awful lot of eyes on it, and the conversation so far in the show has been quite poignant to a lot of those points that have been put out there. One thing as you just mentioned about the Switch 2 that's coming when they finally get the bloody thing out to us. Yeah, there's a lot of tech that's going into that, but not forgetting that it always comes down to the games, and it's an awful lot of studios that put games on PC and Switch because it's cheap for them to do it, and it's more expensive to create games for Xbox and PlayStation, and that's irrefutable. If you're going to take advantage of the tech, you've either got to partner up with an engine that'll cost you a fortune, or you've got to build your own engine, which costs time. Especially if you want to milk the best out of these consoles or the best out of a PC. A lot of studios just don't have that money, and we've seen with the mass layoffs and all that have happened across the industry. A lot of the big publishing houses and big studios are peeling back because there's just an oversaturation of games.
Yeah,
we've gone past the point of sensibility and we're out to the point of craziness. Steam's had over 4,500 games added to its library last year alone. 4,500.
That's insane.
It's like that's
insane.
All? That's more than
that's all.
Yeah. PlayStation added over 1,000. Xbox added nearly 1,000 available. Like it's nuts the amount of games that are coming out. And when you think about a studio goes in, has 50 to 100 people, builds a game, takes 3 or 4 years to do it, and they can't even sell 100,000 units. That's a financial disaster. And the risk is very real now because there's not all this money floating around from the investors to pump money into games, and it's certainly not coming from the publishers anymore. So there's this retraction because the cash isn't there. They've got to get smarter about what they do. So naturally, they're going to gravitate towards where can we build our game at a pretty cheaply, not nastily, but pretty cheaply, sensible value. Where can we build it, and what platform are we looking at to deliver it on? And the two that are there at the moment is we can build it quite quickly and easily for Switch because we can just partner up with Capcom or Square Enix or EA or go directly through Nintendo or whoever, and we can get our game straight out of a dev kit up and on there for next to nothing, right? The same thing with Steam. You look at how well Steam goes with its indie developer work. You can get a game up on Steam quite easily, and it doesn't have to be anything. You need a 4090 with a widescreen that blinds you as soon as you turn it on to get the best out of it. They can just get a simple game that's fun to play. We're talking about at the start of this with the state of play. There's a lot of games on there that people just weren't interested in because the magic's gone out of them, and they're all cookie cutter replications of one or the other. I thought that Until Dawn and Silent Hill 2 looked the same to me from where I was watching it. They're grainy, they're gritty, they're dark, they're narrowed views because they're horror games. It's part of the horror genre. But I'm not into those games, so I don't really pay that much attention. But there's remakes, remasters, and all this, Ubisoft impact and all the rest of it of Assassin's Creed. Then all of a sudden everything's the same and compared to Assassin's Creed, and as an example. But the magic's gone. The magic's got to come from somewhere. These big publishers and the big platform owners do not have the availability or the appetite for the risk to do that stuff. The fact that we've got a Astrobot 2 coming is a freaking miracle.
Yeah.
Because that's got to land.
Yeah, there's far more buzz over Astrobot than there is over Concord.
Well, don't forget. Don't forget.
Magic. It's got
so David, I agree.
Gaming feel.
I agree with you, David, that it is a miracle in the sense from probably a financial standpoint. And I think that's what you're referring to. But the one thing that they have a bit of, I would say, a safety net. We'll find out when sales are actually reported later this year. But everybody that bought a PS5, which seemingly, I don't know whose numbers you want to go by, 59 million, everyone has played Astrobot this generation. So I think that's a lot of people. I think it hit a lot of families in the, families are like, I love this. The kids are loving it. The parents are playing it. As Mag was saying before, it's what he uses every time someone goes, oh, you have a PS5.
Imagine it with the Portal, Mooch. Imagine it with the Portal.
Exactly.
Gamer on Twitter just said, imagine Astrobot with the Portal. Wow. Yeah.
There's no arguing back against that, and it was a great idea for them to build it and give it away free with every console. Right. Is it going to survive if they sell it at $70? What's the sales look like if they go to $60 or $50 or $40? So as soon as you start coming down in price with these bigger studios, and I talk about a lot, the overheads are crushing. And it's worse for Xbox than it is for PlayStation because they've got to worry about their portion of Microsoft overhead. That thing is a giant. The overhead components that they have to fund out of their sales is ridiculous. And we're never going to see those big, risky games coming out of those publishers anymore. We've just got to get used to that. That's not going to happen.
David, when
it's going to come from the partnerships.
When you say overhead, David, are you referring in part? What's the percentage of the pie that's salary or employee driven salary? Just because across the board, we're seeing this even, and I'm trying to make the correlation. David, tell me if I have a point. Is even in fast food. I mean, when we started, a lot of people are everyone's making more per hour. Now there's more cost. Everything gets trickled down to the customer, right? So in this case, you have overhead. Is it because of cost of facility, employee salaries? Everything has gone skyrocket. I mean, is this the overhead you're speaking of?
No. So I'm talking about the corporate overhead. So if you got a studio, let's use Naughty Dog as an example.
Mm-hmm.
So Naughty Dog exists. They have their direct costs of development, which is employees and salaries and occupancy costs and all that sort of stuff. That stuff's gone through the roof. Then you go the next level after your direct costs of operating the studios, your indirect costs for the studio, which includes your utilities and your admin and support and all the rest of that. So the studio itself as a profit center has all these costs that it needs to cop, and it only gets money coming in when it's selling something, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's why Naughty Dog has done the Uncharted remastered, and the Uncharted 4 remastered, and The Last of Us 2, and The Last of Us Part 1, and all these remasters. They've got to have some money coming in, and they're milking the PC pie really hard to have enough money to keep going on top of the investments because of the delays that they've copped with cancelling factions and then these other games that have been delayed and whatnot. Now, they'll get a kick of money coming in from the deal for the Last of Us TV show, but think about it costs tens and tens of millions of dollars to run that studio every year. When was the last time they put out a game that absolutely blew the doors off? It's 2020.
Right.
We're in 2024 and they haven't had a game that new releases come out and just gone bang. So they've got to fund. They're still in a situation where the studios have to fund their next games because they don't get this massive amount of kick in from the top end. And that's their structure, that's their business model, that's fine. The corporate overhead I'm talking about is once the studio's covered all that, they've then got to chip in to run Sony. They've got to chip in to run PlayStation. They've got to chip in to run PlayStation US division.
That's
they've
right.
They've got all this stuff that sits above the studio that they've got to pay for somehow. And we're talking 30 or 40% of the total cost of operation is in the corporate overhead because the corporate overhead looks after all your governance work, all your litigation work, all your regulatory work. They look after all the management, all that direction work, the global consolidation work.
Sounds a lot like almost like the franchise structure. You know what I mean? If you want to go ahead and have a franchise, right? You're paying for that. And that money that you pay them per whatever it is month that is negotiated, they have to pay upwards. They're taking care of your legal fees, your advertising, etc.
All of that, and that just costs a bomb. No, you're right, Wooly. What do you got?
I was just going to say this is why I think all along Folky has spoken out on when he was when my podcast was a thing and Faulkner was a panel member on my show. And Faulkner was the first to say it among all people that I'd heard people say it, but it made complete sense. Like, Game Pass was a Trojan. That just didn't seem. It seems almost like I don't want to put words in your mouth, Faulkner, but it was a complete pipe dream to think that you're betting on the 20%, the small 20 to 30% of the gaming market, who are more invested in gaming to a point where they would even be incentivized to pay a couple of $100 a year to play hundreds of games, because the vast majority play their FIFA, play their Fortnite, play their Call of Duty, and that's it, right? And their NBA and their free-to-play titles. So you're taking just a 30% of total gaming demographic on console, and then you're trying to shift them over to your platform away from theirs, their staple platform, detracting them by attracting them. How? By giving them merely the option to rent games, like opposed to buying them. Like, that's not enough of an incentive to penetrate the market and disrupt it in that way. And it's like to reach a ceiling, all of that just to reach a ceiling high enough to fund this ridiculous overhead that Falcon is touching on. What Microsoft do is to try and skew the optics, to obfuscate the figures, is they apportion their dividends, they apportion their expenditure to different departments to make out like what is actually required by Xbox to contribute to funding isn't actually even on the financials of Xbox, of the Xbox gaming segment. They portion off the expenditures and the costs to different departments where the most is incurred, so that a lot of the expenditure that is required for Game Pass even to function isn't even on the financials of Xbox. So it's madness that, you know, when you think of how close to the knife's edge Sony is just to keep operating and dependent on these sales, and for this to work, it then begs the question: who in their right mind thought Game Pass was a good idea? Only someone who thought it would be useful as a Trojan to acquire a huge amount of studios and IP. And
it's an interesting take.
It's the funding. It's the funding of that overhead, which is what and Woolly's equated it there quite well. The funding of that overhead has to come from somewhere, and you know, again, if you can't really compare at Microsoft and Sony because they operate in two very different industries and in two very different business models, and then different countries, and like it's ridiculous how different they are. But it always comes back to PlayStation and Xbox. PlayStation is the biggest part of Sony by a long way, and it's PlayStation Gaming and Network Services, being PlayStation and associated products, is just as much, if not more, contributing to Sony's revenue as TV and film put together, and I think most of music as well. So the other main things that Sony is well known for, PlayStation is bigger than them combined. So it's big. So it's got a lot riding on its shoulders, and is the biggest contributor to covering that overhead. Because of that, they just don't have that risk appetite and freedom to go forth and make those games like, you know, Gravity Rush 2 or you know, Shadow of the Colossus, or some of those other unique niche little games that are just magical, that are something different. So,
well, the thing I'm hearing though is like you make it sound, and trust me, I get what you're saying, and you are correct, and that there's a lot of overhead, but then you make it sound like, geez, one false step, one missed game, that studio is completely fucked. Yeah, and that's like right now, Factions cost them at least $100 million. At least. And the only reason why I think Naughty Dog is okay is because they've made big franchises. But when you look at studios like Sony Bend, who sold like 8 to 10 million units of that Days Gone, and they were almost put into a support studio. Like, that makes it, to me, like, I know Wooly just brought up Game Pass and like it's a Trojan horse, and how can you expect it? Like, how do you expect this to be sustainable from just a AAA? Like, they've basically made it sound like it isn't. It's not sustainable. It's not. That they need to make it better. And that's even more, to me, that's more dire. That just sounds scary as hell, right? Like, to me, at least, absolutely. As a gamer.
Absolutely,
it is, and I'll answer your question by explaining what it was in their strategy as to how they're going to combat that. Their first party guys are on a knife's edge for everything, and like you said, Naughty Dog are very lucky that they did that TV show, because without that TV show's revenue, they would be in the shit. Because Naughty Dog also supports visual arts and the ICE, that they are carrying a huge amount. So the Last of Us TV show saved their ass, and that there's a reason why Connie Booth and her team are no longer looking after the US studios. They fucked up, and they paid the price for it. It doesn't matter in this industry, the way that Sony operates, you could have 20 years of absolute wins. You fuck up bad enough once and you're out the door. They will gut you and bleed you real quick. That's just how they are. And they need to be like that because they don't have that massive bankroll behind them that supports bad decision making. Yes, they've made some bad decisions, but they just can't afford to have it across the board. Now, someone like The Bend, and I actually find this is a fascinating one. I know Jeff and and others that were at the studio, they don't like me mentioning this, but it took them so long to build that game, Days Gone, and they had spent so long post-launch fixing the thing up. It was 18 months at least post-launch when they fixed it up. That technically, that is a $300 million AAA game.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much money it cost them to get that thing up to the standard that we've got now.
That's a fortune.
And the PC launch and the game sold and all that, it barely broke. I think it broke even after 6 months on PC or something, just to recover the development costs. That nearly killed the studio. And that's a studio, if we remember, that studio's got a big list of IP that are very, very well loved by a lot of gamers. What's Sony's option there? They just keep the IP and shut the studio down, and then they go and find someone else to build games for them, or they support the studio
the problem
and say, what's
is,
the next one? So,
Sorry, go ahead. But like, I want to jump in on one thing.
No, you're right. I'm getting slightly sidetracked, but the point I'm trying to get to is in their strategy, because they've got this risk with the internal studios, now that there's no consolidation threat coming from outside, and they're not going to miss out on getting games on their platform, what they're doing is partnering with studios and partnering with smaller studios. So I keep saying it. Things like Rise of the Ronin, Stellar Blade, Helldivers 2. Those sort of partnership arrangements are far more cost effective for PlayStation to engage in because, one, they don't have to pay out to buy studios. Two, the investments are direct into the game so they can pick and choose what they want. They still get to have input on it and influence. They can become the publisher, but the costs associated with the risk of the game failing are far, far lower. So, and that's what they're doing en masse. You see, that's why they're pushing China Hero Project into another rotation. Then they're chasing
India as well
Hero
now.
Project, and now pushing into Brazil, and they got Malaysia setting up. They've got
South
some
Korea.
small stuff happening in the Middle East. They got South Korea. So that's where we're going to get those smaller games, or I shouldn't say smaller games. That's where we're going to get those games that have got that magic or that difference to them or whatnot. We're not going to get them out of the first party because they just can't afford to take the risk. They've got to stay cookie cutter vanilla to what they know works.
Okay, well, I do got to say though that I do think like what Wooly was talking about with Game Pass. Then, like Game Pass is at, from February when I'm looking it up, is at 34 million subscribers. That's what they say across console, PC, and everything.
Yep.
That is a just solid revenue. And back in the day, I remember in 2020, I want to say that the goal internally, which was leaked, and then it kind of came out through the whole ABK court thing, was once they get to like 50 million, that it's going to be like basically like they could do whatever they want. Like it's done. Like it's super successful. They're super happy with it. And then after that, it's just straight insanity. So to me, isn't it kind of different that it's scary that like a studio needs to completely make franchise level things and bangers all the time instead of, taking risk? And I will say that Matt Booty did say that their games, like the studios they shut down, everybody was up in arms about it. But I'm sitting there going like, did you not play Redfall? Did you like Hi-Fi Rush didn't set the world on fire? Redfall had a 70% studio turnover. That means 70% of the studio left. Like they were not going to rebuild that studio, especially since they didn't make anything. That Roundhouse Dog studio made 40 meta game before they were bought. Like that's what they were. Like and with the ABK deal, they became obsolete. So people just kind of like losing their minds over it, like, oh, it's not profitable. No, they just did an assessment, a risk assessment, and moved on. And we're like, yeah, it's not worth it.
It's the same thing. It's the same reaction. It's the same reaction everybody had. Everyone had the same reaction with London Studios. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so is Game Pass still $15 a month?
Game Pass, I think, is $16.
$16.99 for Ultimate,
or $17. And then I think before COD comes out, I don't think there's going to be tiers. I think it's just going to go up in price. So that's what I think.
Yeah. So different conversation because I want to wait. I want to sort of reserve my comments about the COD in Game Pass thing until after we find out exactly how it's going to be. If it's going to be just 100% in Game Pass and microtransactions are whatever they are, or are they going to do something like they did with Starfield and have an early access for $30 purchase, which I think is smarter.
And I will say this: I know everybody. I've said it. I didn't like Hellblade 2. I know everybody is saying that there's been leaks that that team Ninja Theory is already working on their new game and they're safe. Yeah, Arcane said the same thing,
Yeah.
that they're going back to a single-player game. And if you look at the 7 years that Ninja Theory's been here, they've given you Bleeding Edge and Hellblade 2, which Hellblade 2, numbers-wise, did half of Redfall at launch. Half of Redfall. Think about that. A failed game. So I'm looking at them side-eyed. I'm looking at a lot of the studios, because Matt Booty said in that report, the games need to stand on their own. They can't just rely on Game Pass, basically. That's what reading between the lines. That's what he's saying.
But reading between those very lines, you've got to ask yourself then, what the hell are they thinking in detracting from sales, in detracting from Game Pass with other platforms by releasing it on Steam at the same time, whilst at the same time detracting from sales with Game Pass. They're stretching the pool thin. But they're not adding to it.
Well, because I think sales changed completely. Because I think sales changed completely. If you looked at the Square Enix thing, like one of the former CFOs of Square Enix talked about why Final Fantasy did not meet expectations, because they funded the game in 2017, 2018, and sales were different. He literally says that those free-to-play games we talked about changed the industry. So they can't expect the sales that we were getting years ago. And that's why Sony says they need to adapt.
How can a game stand on its own when you're throwing it into a bargain bucket day one? It's a self-defeating purpose.
Well, if it gets subscribers. If it gets
subscribers, right? But at the same time, they're detracting from subscribers by giving them the option to buy it on Steam.
It is an interesting point.
The thing, right? I mentioned this actually the last time I was on, so I don't want to regurgitate it. But about like you said, to increase subscribers, right? I think that's the fundamental point, is that they missed those 3 years of Game Pass growth targets in a row. And you mentioned the FTC case again. I'll go back to it. I wish you could post stuff to the screen, because then people could see the data straight away. But yeah, they had the graph that showed they expected to be 44 million subscribers at fiscal year 2023, when they were actually 25, and obviously you mentioned they're at 34 million now, but that 34 million is including Xbox Live Gold converted to Core, and even that is actually a decline, because there was 11.7 million Gold subscribers in 2022, and there was 25 million Game Pass subscribers, which should have totaled 37 million, just under, but they're at 34 million. So I think that's the issue, is what Woolly's describing is that maybe they didn't account for the extent of cannibalization of B2P sales, but then at the same time you've got the Game Pass growth itself is also not even close.
I'm going to put the Game Pass. I'm going to put the Game Pass growth solely on Xbox, because what's the one thing that we always talked about? Games. Yep. And they did not I get Starfield was big. I get people enjoyed Starfield, but my God, Hi-Fi Rush was a shadow drop that they obviously didn't have a lot of faith in. Redfall, let's just not even fucking go there. And then you look at Starfield, and then Motorsport, which I've told multiple people is very niche. A lot of people don't really care. And then after that, what have they had this year? They need constant games for it to even be viable.
This is exactly what I've been saying day in and day out. The whole idea of buying all of these acquisitions, getting all these publishers, was supposed to be non-stop games. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, wait a minute, why is it May and we got our first Xbox first party game into Game Pass? And I'm like, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't think that the plan. I don't think that the plan actually worked. And guys, I'll give the mic back to you. You guys are having an outstanding conversation. I did switch it over to Xbox confirms that Call of Duty Black Ops 6 will be day and date in Game Pass. And I actually have this in the actual topic. As David, you said it earlier this week. No pathway back after this is something you tweeted out, and I thought that was interesting. And the thing that's interesting about it is, now that it's in Game Pass, I think it stays in Game Pass. And I know a lot of people that are Xbox fans are like, this is great. It may be, it may also be awful. And I don't know how this is going to pan out. Microsoft clearly would have made a lot more money if they were, selling it for $70 a pop. But the one thing that Phil said when he was on the XCast show was, You have to innovate and be able to bring in new people to your platform, or you have to take something that you have existing right now and get more money out of the customer you already have. And I think that's what we're going to see, the latter. I think you're going to see Game Pass. I think Zucker made a good point. He goes, I don't think you're going to see tiers. I think you're going to see it go up. That I won't argue with. It'll be one or the other. I'll tell you, it'll be one or the other. I don't know if it'll happen this year. It'll happen next year. I don't know if they're going to try and keep good face, and say we're not going to put the price up, and then everybody goes, see, you were wrong. But it will end up going to $19.99, or there'll be a $24.99 option, which gives you everything, and then they'll have a $16 option, and then they'll keep their 10 or 12, which is their core, or not their core, pardon me, their core option, which is multiplayer.
And I'll be real, I don't really I'm never going to be in the pocket of $1 trillion company. No. I don't give a shit. No. Like COD on Game Pass, sweet. There you go. Good for me as a consumer. Like I've always been that way. Like in my head. Like I didn't like the $70 hike. I didn't like that. That has shown statistically that less games are being sold. Like we've seen that from multiple people bringing out data that it's hurting gaming when it comes to sales, and it's because of all the stuff we just talked about, the overhead. So I'm totally fine. Like bring COD to Game Pass, whatever.
Now, Zucker, let me ask you a question, because we were talking about in the chat a second ago. But are you not religiously or daily, but would you call yourself a Call of Duty fan or a regular player?
Yeah. One of the first things I did as a gamer, I was the first Call of Duty that was World War II. I was top 5 in the world. Like I played Call of Duty like crazy. I love that game. I played all the time. Yeah, I played zombies with coworkers. Yeah, I was in Cal I used to play against Cyberglobe, like all these old school stuff. I played a lot, man.
Well, I mean, then you actually are more in line with what I was going to say next. I love it as well, and I got to tell you, since what 2001? I mean, I think
it was 2005.
Was it 5? Yes, it was. It was the 360 era, right?
I think so. I'm looking at when the first one...
Take a look and let me know when the first one was. I don't remember, 2005, 2004. I want to say this much, though. Like myself personally, when it comes
2003.
to this... When it comes down to this game, I mean, I want to own this game. I've owned every Call of Duty. I will never not own my Call of Duty. I love the franchise. I want to play it. I want to own it. That's me. I'm not saying that speaks for you, but that's just something with me. Like I wanted to play Starfield. It looked like it was something I might like. I ended up not liking it at all. I bought it on Steam. I don't mind to try it on Game Pass. Once my subscription's up, I'm done with Game Pass. I've said that for a long time. Once my deal is up, which is I think early 25, I'm done. I'm out. When I want to play an Xbox game and I like it, just like anything on Switch or anything else, Steam, I'm just going to go buy it on Steam. And that's where I'm playing Xbox for the majority of the time now, has been on Steam. I do want to take a second to say thank you so much to Sister Fister out there. Says, hey, Mooch, just want to say I love your work. I look forward to the show every Friday. Lots of love from Melbourne, Australia. Also, thank you to the guests. Sister, thank you so much. I appreciate that. That means the world to me. Shout out to JC 2013. He says, great show and panel, Mooch. Keep it up. Guys, thank you so much for the super chat. The super chat's working. It's a miracle.
But the Steam thing is right. I think you're right. I think if like this is like it wasn't on Steam for a little while, right? But even Activision was like, "F it, we're putting it on
Absolutely.
there." Absolutely. Like and Battle.net is an amazing store. I don't know if anyone's used it, but as a PC guy, it was the main competitor to Steam for me. I love Battle.net. Ubisoft EA's was it's ugly. I don't like it that much. But like Steam and Battle.net are the best ones because they're developed the most and they've had years of development. So I get what everybody's saying. Like if you want to own it, like you have the option. They're not telling you not to do that. And that's totally fine with me. There's some games on Game Pass that I do own because I was like, you know what? I want to play it here or I want to do this. And it's been for me a success because I enjoy it as a gamer and I've used Game Pass a lot. Now there are months like these last January to now, or actually I would say I didn't like Starfield. So I'm like, I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, I did not like that game at all. I thought it was boring as shit. So I think Starfield since then, there's nothing in Game Pass that has really grabbed me. I was not a Pal World fan, holy shit. And all this other stuff that were to the point where I was like, am I going to even stay subbed? Now, I have a connection with Microsoft because of my channel that I just get Game Pass because they're awesome like that. Mm-hmm. So like, but like in my head as a consumer, I'm like, you know what? I don't need a sub to this right now. I wouldn't use this for at least 3 months. And that's what it's there for. Mm-hmm. Like to me, that's pro-consumer. If you don't want it, then just unsub from it, and then you can sub to it again.
That's right.
Like that's it.
That's one of the things I think a lot of people that I think is a hidden gem there that no one really talks about. Xbox doesn't really want to promote this, and that is, like you take Starfield. If you want to play it, pay the $10 for the month, get the core, get the games, or whatever it is, whatever that mid tier is there, and play the single player game, enjoy it, and then for the month you're done. There's nothing wrong with that, Zucker. I think that's definitely
that's not sustainable.
No. For them, they're not.
And that's on them,
that's
bro.
On
Just
them.
like it's not like honestly, it's on them, and it does sound like no matter what you pick. To me, no matter what you pick, like Sony isn't sustainable. Like the way he's describing the overhead, that's fucking scary, bro. Like one game, you're done. Dunzo. Next,
operating on a very tight margin is sustainable if there's still a margin. And you're in the positives. Whereas I just think that it's a different kettle of fish when you have to, in an attempt to make it appear profitable, shift all the expenditure to different departments in your financials and obfuscate your profits. That's a whole different kettle of fish. But the point is that it's a circular argument. We're debating if it's good for the industry and what's going on in the industry, but then the argument falls back down to, well, that's not my problem. It's like it's a circular argument, but at the end of the day, the very fact is that even with all of these studios Microsoft has right now that they've just acquired, there's still not enough to put out constant content on Game Pass week in, week out to keep people incentivized to continue to stay subbed. They're still going to have to chip into third party or buy more. And if the third party, that's still a very, very expensive thing that they don't want to do, which is why all along I have said Game Pass necessitates consolidation and IP acquisition on a mass scale, which is why I've always been against it from day one. I'm not a Game Pass hater because I hate Xbox. I don't give two dry dog tears what your preferred platform is. I want Xbox to compete. What I don't want is this model makes it necessary to buy as much as possible to buy.
But let me give you this then. Like, do you not think like at the end of this year, right? Like we have for Call of Duty purposes for Xbox Game Pass purposes, from what it looks like, we have Avowed, Indiana Jones, maybe Forza Horizon 5, or 6, which people are forgetting about, but that might be there, and Call of Duty. That's 4 big ass games coming. Is that not competing? Like, to me, that's competing. And I don't think what you're saying, I don't think you're far off. I think that, and this is what I was saying earlier, is that, they don't have games in there that are making Xbox or Game Pass grow. They had that big thing 4 years ago about 4 AAA games a year. And that's what they need.
Let me turn it around. Let me turn it around though real quick. Forza Horizon 5 was in Game Pass. Halo, their biggest game, if you want to say what's really a marketing, that's their brand. Okay, you've had Forza Motorsport in there. You had Starfield, which was Todd Howard's baby for 25 years in the making. That didn't do it. But you think Indiana Jones, which resonates with probably people born in 1980, and the other game that you make. And Zucker, I'm just asking the question.
No. You're asking a good question. To me, you bring out these games, but if you look at the timeline, they came out years apart. I'm saying they need to be consistent with the games. I'm saying they need to not have lulls like they've had for the past 8 months.
I agree.
They can't have that. That's what I mean. It doesn't matter it matters what the game is to some extent.
The game,
but they need consistency.
I do think so. If we're looking at a scale here, and I agree with what you just said, I just think that the scale tips slightly more in what Falky was saying earlier, and I think Nib said it, which was the games. Avowed. Every time I see Avowed, it looks worse. Also, Avowed is going to be something that is right. It doesn't, and it also it's a house.
Sorry, that made me laugh. That made me laugh. Sorry,
because I was very excited for Avowed. I think Oblivion's
so
probably
am I. So am I. And I saw it. And I was like, this looks okay. It looks cool. I'm going to enjoy it. I think. But yeah. I wasn't like, holy shit. Like right. I thought it looked cool.
By the way, I think Obsidian is their biggest get. I think it's their best get. By the way. I really do. I think that's one of the most talented teams that they picked up. And the thing about it is I agree with what you're saying as far as putting a lot of content in there, because that's what Netflix does. You ever have your buddy at work say, hey, Zucker, have you watched blah, 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 blah? And you're like, no. When did that come out? Oh, about a month ago on Netflix. And then like literally 2 weeks later, someone's like, oh, something else came out on Netflix. Trust me, a lot of it, like you said, isn't very good content on Netflix, but there's a lot of it. And that may be something that we have to wait and see. But I think the quality here is what I'm having a problem with.
Yeah.
Is Hellblade 2
Mooch,
step back. You know what I mean? Avowed from what we got with Outer Worlds seems already very dull, bland step back. I mean, we'll find out. From what I saw from Indiana Jones, and I grew up watching all the Indiana Jones in the theaters. I'm an Indiana Jones fan, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, You know, I mean, it's not like it's like great. Like you say, I'll wait for it to be a sale on Steam. It's
one reason why I am hyped. One reason why I am hyped about Indiana Jones is it's about the Great Circle. Now, for those who don't know what the Great Circle is, it's legitimately terrifying because basically it's all centered around the Great Pyramid of Giza, and there's an equator that goes around the Earth at a 30-degree angle that covers all these mysterious locations in a straight line. Easter Island, the pyramids of China, the pyramids of Peru, Polynesian statues, and the Great Pyramid of Giza, and it's all one big giant circle, and it's all within the same dimensions by the measurement of that equator with its pole, with its North Pole, to the same dimensions of the Great Pyramid of Giza.
Welcome to math, everybody.
No, honestly,
that's what it is. Oh no, it's insane. I know exactly what you're talking about. It is insane.
And it even includes the Great Pyramid of Giza includes the speed of light, the meter before the meter was discovered. Apparently, like the modern the qubit, Fibonacci sequence, pi, 137.5 degree golden angle. All of it is implemented within the dimensions of the Great Pyramid, and the Great Circle. Is the Great Pyramid is the focal point of that, and it's weird, bro. It's really weird, but it proves that there has to be, in my opinion, a creator for all of it possible.
To kind of talk about just that, like to me, like that.
Hey, hold on, I need to get aluminum foil to put on my head real quick.
Right, go get it, dude. I want to hear the crinkling though when you put it on.
Okay, all right, cool. Just
I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna be. And I said this on a little bit of, like, I've talked about this a little bit. I haven't been around, but I've talked about it with some friends. The one thing I will say about Xbox and why I became a fan is because of their co-op and online games.
Yep.
That's me.
Yep.
And I will say, like, if it's all that we're getting right now when it comes to co-op is kind of like, call it the Diablo expansion, Call of Duty, games like that. To me, I think, like, with Hellblade and games like those types of things, Xbox has gone through an overcorrection of making games that are story driven. I think that a lot of people have given that feedback and they want it. Those games are great, and I play them on PlayStation or I play them on the PC. I enjoy them, but for me, the soul of what Xbox was is Gears of War, is Halo, is games like that. And I'm not saying I want another one of those games. I'm saying I want something similar but different IP. And I want to play with my friends. And I want to do that because that's what Xbox always brought me as a gamer. And so I haven't seen them do that to some extent. I know that if it's Forza Horizon and all those come out, but they haven't taken that risk. That's what I want from them. And I get what you're saying.
If I can slide in here real quick, because I was thinking about, we've been talking about risk, but then we also know kind of what some of these companies are operating off of on margin. It really has to be one or the other, because if The Last of Us or Naughty Dog, for example, they took a risk by doing factions because honestly, it's kind of out of their wheelhouse. They don't do live service, and you saw where $100 million never came.
Probably way more than that, honestly.
Yeah, whatever it ended up being. So I think that some of these studios, I don't necessarily want to say play it safe, but we know some of the margins that they're operating off of. And we also know that Sony is not afraid to cancel projects. And so I think on one hand, we as consumers, we want them to take risk and bring something new and different that we haven't experienced. Like, Helldivers 2, for example, I hadn't really had that much fun with my friends kind of running around shooting aliens and blowing shit up in honestly a really long time. It was just kind of something different. I grew up watching Starship Troopers and a couple other, different films, and it was something different. But then I try to put myself in the shoes of the studios and think those guys probably don't necessarily want to take many risks right now because they're seeing the layoffs, they're seeing the cuts, and if they take the risk and it doesn't pan out, what's going to happen because they're already operating on slim margins. I mean, Concord, I don't know what you guys thought about it. I'm just bringing that up to kind of tie into the state of play.
Yeah.
I think the game is a huge risk, and for me, it's not my game. When it comes to PvP, my reflexes. I'm older, that's why I do trophies now. I mean, my reflexes are about as fast as two turtles trying to get it on at a petting zoo. So it's just I no longer have the desire to play those types of games, and I also wonder how many other consumers are going to pay whatever that price is that Concord's going to be to play that game. Is there enough for them to break even? Because I don't know how much that game costs. To make.
We'll find out on the 6th, right? June 6th. That's when the pre-orders go, and you get a beta key with 4 other beta keys.
I think that you're right. It is June 6th. Is the beta's in July, though, is it not?
It is, yeah. And it says if you pre-order it, you get 4 friends.
Did they say how much it was going to be, Jez?
No, they didn't. I didn't check the story either. No.
Yeah, it hasn't released on how much it's going to be, so
we'll find out.
I would like to see that because I think when it comes to PlayStation Studio...
Seeds. Let me ask you an important question though here, because I'm glad Jez just brought that up. What if they put this thing they just saw the success? They're going to go ahead and throw it on PC day 1 too.
Yep.
What if this thing's $39.99?
If they stick with the 40, I think that
I think it'll do well.
I think it has to be 40.
I think it has to be 40 because you have to attract a crowd that's going to get in and play those games. And there's no story element behind it to go through and play a long campaign.
They are.
They are putting a story.
They're going to do like a weekly video for each of the characters and the story. Like each week, they're going to have a
I guess when I'm talking to story, I'm talking
like a campaign
feature that's 10, 15, 20 hours, and then you jump into multiplayer. It's not going to have that. It's going to be very much. It almost looked like Overwatch meets the gunplay of Destiny, and so
that's exactly what I said.
Yeah,
I think that game hinges on 2 things. Number 1 is going to be gameplay, how it feels. To me, it didn't look like it had a lot of weight behind it when you're shooting and everything. It looked kind of, stiff. I don't know how to explain it. It just looked a little, just to me. The other thing is going to be competitiveness. If it's going to be a shooter, a lot of the most successful games have a ranking system, right? Like Valorant has a ranking system, and that's what it looks like it's competing against. And same with Overwatch, ranking system. Like those ranks are insanely popular, and that's what a lot of people stream. That's what Apex Legends popped off. It has that. One of the only games that I don't know if it does, but I think Call of Duty didn't have ranking for a while. Now Fortnite does. The ranking is going to be big. How competitive does the game get when it comes to online shooting
I just don't understand
and the gameplay?
These CGI videos every week that they're going to be stories of characters. It's like, what are you trying to? What?
Nobody gives a shit.
Nobody cares. You're trying to do the friggin' Overwatch stuff. How those people the gamers, they really attracted to the characters and they want you to get attached to the character. I don't know. It is a risk. I agree. And also, I went back to see what they said, and they just said that all their service games. Sony's like, all our service games, live service games, are not all shooters. That's what they said. So far, they're batting 100 right now.
Isn't Haven a shooter? They
all, games.
My thing is what are we How many live service games can you bring out before you're just hurting yourself? Right, you're competing with your own self, that. That to me is the scary thing, and I've said this.
One golden goose, and you're good. So
good for that studio, but not the other ones.
Well, see now that's
you develop.
Ask Film Stars how they're doing.
Go ahead, Dave.
So you start
Saturation 101. Saturation 101.
You just got to get they start with the. I'll dumb this down because save on time. They started with 10 projects. They've cut 4. So there's 6 of them that were left. And then they cut, they said Factions wasn't going to be released. So they got 5.
Right.
Arrowhead was the first one cab off the rank in those 5 that were coming. So we know
and
that
London Studios was
Helldivers
making
2.
one too. London was making one.
Yeah, London was making. That's why they got shut down because that one got cancelled and they couldn't come up with something better. So they said, "Well, if you got nothing to do, we're not going to pay for you to sit around and do nothing."
Yeah, that's why they shut them down.
So there's 5 that are left that we know of, and you've got Helldivers as the first cab off the rank. That's done great. Good price point, good game, lots of fun, ticks a lot of boxes. Excellent. Now you've got Concord, Fair Games, and Marathon are the next 3 that are coming.
Horizon Online.
I was about to say Horizon one, but I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's going to come out, man.
Well, that
Especially
one
if it's a
got
cartoon.
sent. That one got sent
Ollie,
back to.
sorry, I've got a question for you. Just
Yeah.
Folky, a question for you, mate.
Go ahead.
Isn't there an issue though with these studios working on live service games? We know Naughty Dog cancelled the multiplayer project because they weighed up the fact that their entire studio would have to be solely devoted to the ongoing maintenance and development of this game. It means that they're not actually working on anything for the future as a fallback, and they're spread too thin. So if it fails, then they have to start from scratch on a new idea, and that's like 5-6 years of development. So a live service game can really screw them over because if it doesn't work out, we've got nothing else.
Yeah, and that was the realization they came to after putting all that effort in at Naughty Dog. And if Naughty Dog says that, you give them the credit for saying this, they front up and go, "We're probably arguably the best in the stable of PlayStation studios. We've got all the tech and all the good resources available to us. And we're looking at this thing going, if we want to launch this and make it work and make it sustainable as a true live service game, we're not going to be able to do anything else." And they pull the pin on it because they don't want to commit to that.
I don't think it was them that pulled the pin on it. I thought it was Bungie. I thought Bungie went over there, evaluated it, because Sony said that they were going to use Bungie to help with other studios when it comes to live service games because that's what they specialized in.
Yeah,
so Bungie went over there, and let's be real. Like, in order to get into a game like that, you need to have things that you work toward. In my head, I was like, what are you going to get in factions? Like a torn up jean and like a beanie? Like, it's like, it didn't, like, to me, it didn't make sense of why they were doing it. But whatever.
Bungie's involvement was never hands-on development. Bungie's involvement was always consulting on how you take a game you would sell and turn it into a game that you make live service.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just selling a multiplayer game and people just, that's all there is to it. So there's an input from Bungie that did exist, but when Naughty Dog worked out what that would require to make it a successful, because there's been an awful lot of attempts at a live service game and very few actually make it successful. That's why you start with a huge number, and if you get 1 or 2 to stick, well, you take that as a success in an overall perspective. But
it's probably what helps Naughty Dog reach that conclusion is Bungie's input. They probably consulted them and said, listen, you're going to have to work full time on this. And they were probably like, yeah.
No, and then that causes issues with, again, we talk back to their strategy outlook to the back end of what's going forward. You don't want your best narrative studio not working on narrative games, and you can't afford to double the size of the studio. So you either shift the game somewhere else or you pull the plug on it. They elected to pull the plug on it. They did the same thing with the other 3 that they cancelled. They went, crap, this is not going to be sustainable. Let's pull the plug on it now.
Right.
Because we're competing in a saturated marketplace. I still don't know what the Bend is going to do with their piece. They're working on some kind of live service blended game, but they're still years away from showing us anything. But these other 3 that are coming, Marathon, Concord, Fair Games,
which we didn't see anything today of Fair Games at all.
Those 3 games are being built by studios that are solely devoted to those games. So once Destiny 2's done, all that Bungie's going to work on is Marathon. They're not doing anything else. They've got some TV stuff they want to do, but that's it.
If any of them flop, the risk is that studio is screwed because they won't have another game in early mid development.
Yeah, that's right. And
I honestly think both sides are a little bit equal in risk. I understand that you're saying that Game Pass is sustainable. I understand that, but I do see it as what I forgot who said it. It might have been David, or I forgot who. Anyways, they were saying that yeah, these risks that Naughty Dog and all the PlayStation studios have is that they're going to be afraid to take chances because if they do and fail, that's their ass. Yeah, and that's the same thing. Like I feel like there's both risks on both sides, and I get it. Yep. And I will never say like PlayStation or Xbox's Game Pass is the answer, and everybody should do the same thing. You know that it would. You know, I'm not that. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that Xbox is taking their route and they have their risks, and Sony's taking their route and they have their risks. Every single one of them to me is equally riskful.
Oh, I just think if we saw the number, I agree with that. I just think there's a few caveats there. I think that if Sony did the subscription service path and didn't have the war chest of money Microsoft did, that would collapse the entire platform. Yeah.
Oh yeah, because third party is a big third party, and EA is a big part of that for Xbox. Like a lot of the games that they put on there, like Lies of P, all the stuff like that Flint one with the girl with the axe, like these things that are coming to Game Pass are things to help like sustain like people either coming or staying on there. That's the way I look at it. And they have the money to do that, which is totally fine. Like Lords of the Fallen just came today on there, and it's like great. I know people that are like, cool, I didn't buy this, so I'm going to play it here. Like that is just a thing that's going to happen. And I don't think Sony can do that. And not to mention Sony doesn't, I think Sony has a lot of games that they bring out, but they're not going to be able to do what Xbox is about to do. I also with the 37 studios.
I also think when you're talking, and Dave, I'll give you the mic back. And Dave, you can tell. I want to actually know, Dave, if you think this is a point. I think we're sitting there and we're saying they have one. We're saying when we're talking about Sony Studios, they have one shot to make a blockbuster hit, or it's kaput. I don't necessarily see it that way. I mean, look at the movie industry has had certain issues over the past 4 or 5 years as well. But these, when you see like Paramount or you see any of these companies, and they have an absolute look at some of the Marvel movies that absolutely bombed recently. Like that doesn't mean that those studios and they're closing. Like I think when it comes down to it, if Ben's game doesn't make it, Ben's not closing. I mean, sure, if you buy a small team of 15 to 50 people and they're like, Fire Sprite or they're a Firewalk, or you're like, they don't make it. Well, okay, maybe those companies, those teams, would be in more risk. I don't think like if Naughty Dog's next single player IP bombs, which I don't think it will, but if it did, I don't think that's curtains for Naughty Dog. I just don't see that. I think that they'll get an opportunity to rebound. It just seems very, very like I just don't think it's as cutthroat. I think when you're looking at certain instances of like London Studio, look at what have you done for me lately? That's what it comes down to. What have you done for me lately?
I'm not saying that. I really can't think. I think we can't really just kind of say like it's the game that, because look at what happened with Tango Gameworks. Like when Sarah Bond was even asked about like why they shut them down and what was the measurement of success, they couldn't answer that. And it's like they have different measurements ever. Yeah, exactly. But she didn't answer like what was the measurement of success? Like was it sales? Was it exposure? But the thing is like, you can't say, well, you don't have a hit, you're gonna get shut down. Like and anyway, too, I think we talk too much about how the sausage is made. I don't care about how the sausage is made. I just want to play quality games. And if quality is gonna drop, then I don't spend my money on that. And that's what it comes down to is the they got to figure out that risk. It's not for me. I see the end product.
Exactly.
You show me the game. Do I want to buy it?
That's
if
right.
you show me shit, you get shit from me. If you show me quality, then you'll get money from me. Yeah. But that's up to them, and they need to manage those risks. They got to do it.
I will say one interesting thing. Herman Hulse in his in the whatever conference that he did, he actually mentioned he separated. He said either successful through sales or critical acclaim. So I think for PlayStation, a large part of it is, the brand, the prestige of the brand, because they kind of have been cementing themselves as like the HBO of gaming, right? If you want high quality, high production, benchmark pushing titles, this is the platform for you. So I think for Sony, they are also cognizant not just of sales, but do you have the critical reception, and are you going to elevate the prestige of the company?
I understand what he's saying there, but to be honest with you, man, I see that as a little bit of a PR speak. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, all right, critically acclaimed. Like, that's all great. But at the end of the day, you want money. Like all these people always want money.
I agree with that. But then think about money. Yeah, but think about like Media Molecule is like still around, and they haven't done a lot lately. That question: how much have you done for me?
Yeah, dude, that was the one game that Sony wanted to go on PC. Dream should have been on friggin' PC. That's what that.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the games for VR and all that stuff, man. It should have been on PC.
I always find it ironic though that and this isn't a dig or a slight at you, Zolka, but it's Phil can come out and say one thing and say another and then say another in sequence of 2 years that are completely self-contradicting and self-defeating. And every time he speaks, the media and the content creators all parrot what he says as gospel, right? There's none of this apathy or cynicism or skepticism, rather, is a more appropriate word, that, it's all just PR speak and PR talk. And yet, when somebody says we care about the prestige of our brand as a CEO of the company in a very matter-of-fact professional setting, in a very figures, transparent, business-focused and kind of very Japanese manner, this is how we do business, we care about the brand, it's dismissed as PR speak and not really anything that means anything. It just makes me laugh that Sony all this time have been doing what works. The figures don't lie. The numbers don't lie. They explain the struggles that they have, which a lot of people kind of laugh about and say, they're unsustainable, because they acknowledge. They don't lie about, but acknowledge the very small margins that they operate on, right? And they're very transparent in what they were saying. Even Herman Hulst couldn't have been more transparent when he was agreeing with the concerns that they have. And yet, that's all kind of dismissed and pushed under the rug. And yet, Phil can claim Game Pass is profitable and sustainable without providing any figures whatsoever, can blatantly just hide and remove figures from financials, obfuscate and deflect. But it just feels like, are we living in the twilight zone here?
I mean, I don't know who you're talking about. Like, if it's the media, great. Like, I've actually been very vocal about Phil and the team and everybody at Xbox just shutting up. Stop talking and actually bring out the games. I have been a proponent of that for a little while now. At first, when he talked, it felt kind of like, okay, I could see what he's doing. He was very open and transparent when he was like, we need to get the hardware right and then the software. This was like 8 years ago. Yeah. And it was like, you know what? That makes a lot of damn sense. And it was like, cool. And that was it. Now when he talks, I don't like, and this has been for like at least 2 years for me. I just want Xbox to shut up. And I said, I am done. Like, the shows are great. Put the games. I just said, put the games in my damn hands. That's what I've always said. And that's all. Just put the games in my hands. And the most real, no excuses. Like, I'm just saying, the whole last year when he was on Paris Lilly's podcast, that was the most real conversation that Phil's probably ever had, where he was like, we are not going to out console PlayStation. We are not going to do this. And it was like, he was pissed. It was after Redfall came out. Yep. Like, I was like, okay, like, this was the only interview that I listened to and was laughing. And I was like, this dude does not give a fuck anymore. Like, he's pissed off.
Just remember, he was saying all of that whilst trying to get Activision Blizzard passed, right? So my point, like, literally the internal emails that leaked were saying that they were boasting about literally buying Sony out of business, and just the almost the inflammatory kind of haphazard, just wake up one morning and decide to make ZeniMax exclusive internal meeting conversations that they were having, where people were arguing with each other about. It was crazy, bro. Like, it felt like there's no direction or no real purpose or sense of where they're actually going or what they're doing. But
whatever was said during the deal with the FTC that was going on, that is the most, like, just stay back, don't say shit. Hopefully this goes through. And a lot of the stuff they were saying, I didn't believe, because they're just trying to get that thing to pass. And once they got it to pass, it was done. Like, now since everything's changed, they're like, yeah, we're going to go to PlayStation. I mean, Sea of Thieves is like top 5 selling for how long on PlayStation? Like, that's the whole point. Yeah, and it's an amazing game, and it deserves to be up there. But I don't see Phil as like, oh, he's not touchable. Like, I don't see that as Sarah Bond either. I don't see that Matt Booty. I have been very vocal of that, no matter where. I don't harp on it like a lot of people. They're not saying, like Zucker, that's me.
Zucker, notice since the deal has gone through, they had that Xbox podcast, the business podcast. They haven't said anything. I mean, Sarah did that
Well,
one
they
interview.
put Sarah out there.
Sarah-
That was the worst time to put her out there, too.
Right.
Good luck, Sarah.
How's that Lulu gone, guys?
I don't
How's
know if
Lulu
that was a
gone?
way to try to get the mobile store like promoted or something like that
I
on the
don't
phone,
know.
but man, I don't
Where's
know
the
why
queen
they
gone,
did
guys?
that.
Where's the queen? Where's Lulu? Where's
my
the queen
God.
who was going to save
And what's-
Xbox?
I don't
Who's
even know
gonna come in
the
and-
crazy. Dude, the craziest thing with that interview was like, what was she there for? To get like just berated with questions about the studio closures and everything? Like she was on a forum, like it looked like a TED talk, like of all industry tech people. And now, unless the lady blindsided came out there and was just like, yeah, so you closed down studios. What's wrong? Like, you know, why would you? I was like, holy crap! Like,
I'm surprised Booty wasn't up there because he's head of studios, right? And all we even
Right.
feel like
yo, he is.
Well,
protected,
I will say
man.
this:
He-
like, how
they
many?
keep him-
Like, I will say this: how
Mobile.
many times? The reason why they get so killed is because Xbox is always out there. Their people like being out there, so
they're
they get
pushing
some
other
recognition.
things. Zucker,
Not
they're
just
pushing,
other,
like-
not just pushing things.
well,
They're
no,
pushing their career. They're pushing their
talking
career.
AI, they're talking cloud. They're trying to get involved in all that stuff. So that's why I said she was out there. You heard her confidence when they were talking about the mobile store on the phone, which that was something that probably why she had to kind of promote that. That was an audience for that stuff. That's why they're always out there. AI, Satya is doing interviews, and they're talking about other things because those things are more important to Microsoft. A lot of those things they want to be involved in, especially AI.
Yeah.
I think it's more
You know-
important
you
for
know
their
from-
careers, man. That's me. I think
Ooh,
like
that-
when they
you think
like
their
I think
careers?
that I think they're going out there
Relevance?
to like their yeah. I'm not joking. I think
Really?
that that's what they're doing because if you like look at Sony, like Sony's never out there talking to anybody, including their fans. Like they just aren't.
Yo,
They're just like
shit, no.
here's some games, and we're gonna go back to the
Yeah,
drawing board,
see you
and we'll
later.
see you in
Well,
in
we all know.
a year and a half.
Who was that guy at the show? Like he had a tuxedo, he had a suit on. I'm like, who the hell's that guy?
I don't know who that guy is either. I was like, what the
I'm like,
hell?
who
What's
is
going on?
I'm like, is he a mocap? Like, who is this guy? And he's like, I'm studio's head. I'm like, who the hell's this guy? I got nervous because he was in a friggin' turtleneck. You know, when Herman Holtz goes there, you have that three buttons undone. High quality games are coming when Herman Holtz has the buttons undone.
That's
that
right.
guy had a full ass turtleneck suit on. I was worried.
Oh,
you know, I will say, like, Xbox has a tendency to do these kind of pivots, like Kinect, and then the digitals thing with the One, and then they had Game Pass, and
Game Pass.
and
yeah.
based on that interview with Sarah Bond, I kind of almost feel like the next pivot might be really heavy into mobile gaming. Again, that's just, it could be completely wrong, but it's just the vibe I got from
That was compete against Nintendo.
Do people know how many? So, like, I'm glad you brought up the Kinect because this is another thing that we actually studied. That is one of the weirdest, like, tech things that scare people because the Kinect was massively successful. It sold like over like 35, 40 million units.
35
Yeah,
million
and
units,
it tested up. It tested up the wazoo. A lot of people were buying it. It was crazy. So they're like, we're going to put this in gaming, and people are going to love it because all the tests showed that they would, and it freaking killed them.
That fake AI
Yeah.
child demonstration that was completely fake and staged. Oh, mate,
yeah,
that was
with
The Star Wars thing? Oh my god, that guy.
yeah. But yeah, it's a
And Central was awesome, though. Good music, though.
They just have no
Yeah,
taste. They just have no taste. Anyway,
Yeah,
sorry,
I
keep going
I
on
want to say
that
something
line.
about the Call of Duty thing. Yeah, one thing I want to say Call of Duty and Game Pass was, one of the things that I'm excited for this year's Call of Duty. I want, because last year's was 1 year I did not buy it because of that. You know, I'm not buying $7 in DLC bullshit maps. But this year I'm excited for it. One of the things that now just kind of boggles my mind as we're talking about their management and stuff was like, you know, they're closing down trying to make money. It seemed like they needed to make money, like Phil said during that interview in February. Like they got to either take more money from who they have, or that's why they're putting their games on other platforms to bring, you know, to just sell games that have seen their stuff on PC and on Xbox. And it's like if they seem to be kind of counting their money, like, hey, we got to get our return on investment back. This game will sell. It does sell. It's guaranteed. And that's kind of like the quickest way to get your money back. And I think they're doing another just bet. And I don't know, I'm sure there was internal discussions back and forth, but this I think is another bet on Game Pass, which is another head scratcher in the sense that they're not focused so much on growth anymore. In where he said it kind of flatline, unless they think this is their last ditch effort for it. I think, just like what Mooch was saying, I think this is a play to increase the price. Like this is when you increase the price. You don't increase it with with Avowed, with Fable, with Hellblade 2. Call of Duty and Game Pass, that price is going up.
That price goes
and
up.
You're going to get, maybe they include the battle pass. I don't know.
And
but
I think
this is a way to get more money from the subscribers that they have. Like the pool will grow. But I think the 35 million, it's like we're going to get more money out of 35 million.
That's it.
And I think PC Game Pass is going to go up because that avoided the last increase in price. It was still $10. I think that goes up to either 13 or 15.
I still just don't get it. But Mooch,
hey, man, I don't know. Like, it's another bet. They could have just sold it.
But think about it. But just
you
think
can't go
about
backwards,
it
like somebody else said. You're not
think
done.
about it for a moment. This is how much they have fundamentally misunderstood their own assignment, right? Call of Duty appeals to a mass demographic of gamers, right? It appeals to casuals. It appeals to those who play the free-to-play mode Warzone religiously every day as their only game they play, right? So they're putting into a subscription service where they pay hundreds a year, a game that has the bulk of it is free-to-play, right? To then increase the price of it. It's like, where's the incentive? Like, time is money, and money is time, right? So when you're playing a game where most of them will be playing the free-to-play mode anyway, so it's literally Game Pass is a detractor. Like, it detracts from Game Pass completely, the Warzone mode, and the rest of it, it's like, well, if all I do is play Call of Duty because it's a game that necessitates I invest a lot of time into it with the Battle Pass and stuff like that, then what reason do I have to subscribe to Game Pass where I'll end up paying more to play it?
So that's an interesting. This kind of runs parallel to that. This is something that's been all over Twitter the past couple of days, especially since they announced it was going to go to Game Pass day one. Game Pass Core gets online multiplayer access, but doesn't get COD. Game Pass Console gets Call of Duty, but not online multiplayer access. So people will have to go to Ultimate for both. That's an interesting point too. I don't know if you guys had taken a look at that. So, like, it's more of what I was saying earlier, and what Jez was just saying a moment ago as well, is that they're going to either move their $10 a month customer to $16.99, and then there's going to be a deciding factor internally whether or not that $16.99 goes up to $19.99. Or they do tiers. Either way, I listen. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, Game Pass is going to explode." I listen. Will the number go up from 34 million? Yes,
I'm sure.
Is it gonna absolutely double? Not even close. I
don't think it's going to double. I think it's going to get a few people in there. And the other thing I got to say is that I think paying to play on console multiplayer needs to fucking go across the board.
Oh, that's fine. You know what?
Get that shit the hell out of here.
That's
and
fine.
The people get it out.
The same thing with like Herman, like saying about PlayStation games going day and date. You know, those games like, hey, they're playing to pay online. PC isn't. You know, this is your live service strategy. Are you going to address that live service strategy of people have to pay to online? You know, and I think they try to both of them try to compensate by saying we're giving you games with it, so therefore you're paying for online, but also you're getting these games. But
those games are trash.
I know. They got that online shit. You know, nobody ever addressed that. Neither one of them when they wanted to go to PC.
They had no choice but to keep it multi-platform as well. Because think about it, if they stop putting it on PlayStation, like. What are Xbox gamers won't play it either because they'd be stuck playing against sweaty diehard PC gamers, and it would just be PC market that are left. They would have like cut their player base into like a third of what it currently is. And I will say
I'm fascinated to see how Call of Duty like tracks in, because it's always been a behemoth like in Sakana and GSD and stuff like that. So I'm really curious to see if there's any tracking movement when it goes into Game Pass, because I know I don't need to buy it ever again. That's just the truth. Like I've got Game Pass stacked like for several years because of the gold thing. So like
that feeds back into the comment that I made around there's no pathway back for this.
Yeah, that's right. It's moving forward. And you know what? I think they had to do it. Like, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. If they didn't put this in Game Pass, I think their pushback would have been it would have been bad. Like, they had to do this.
Contractually obligated and regulatorily obligated. They couldn't get out of doing this.
What, to put it in Game Pass?
Yeah, they made.
Yeah, that was the whole point. That was the commitment that it was going to go in there because they're going to bring their games everywhere. Like this is why they're going PS5 day and date. This is why they're going PS5. People are acting like it's like, oh, they're just trying to kill. No, it's because to get ABK, people don't realize how big that fucking purchase is. It's one of the biggest purchases in tech history. Not even gaming, just tech in general. Like it's like, dude, like, this is massive.
Oh, it dwarfs every other game in Scandinavia to Germany. You could build 12 underground tunnels from Scandinavia to Germany. For the same price. It was almost the market cap of PlayStation at one point. So, sorry, of Sony at one point. So you know, it's serious.
Yeah. So there's.
Oh yeah, it's huge. Like, but they had to. I think they
had
to.
Sorry,
just for that.
David's mic is quite low. But
go ahead, Dave.
Sorry. Just on that, you know, the issue around will it, won't it, how it, what's it going to do? It's a very intricate setup because, you know, baseline is they had to do it. There's no way around it. That's what one of the biggest arguments was between Microsoft leadership and Xbox leadership was promises were made. How do we get out of them and what will it cost us? So, and Nib just referenced to it, and you've referenced to it plenty of times, Mooch. There's that many people who stacked up the $1 deals into infinity perpetuity out however many years.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that they say there's 35 million subscribers, but when you look at the numbers that come through, where we do see what's the revenue of Xbox and Xbox, you know, subscription content or whatever it is that they report on in their quarterlies, and it came out in the FTC that's 10 to 15% of Xbox gaming revenue is content and services coming from Game Pass and other related items. They're barely at 50% of what it should be if everyone was paying full bang just at the bottom end of it, let alone at the top. So if they're saying we're going to have, say, it tracks similar to last time, we sell in the next 12 months, we sell 35 million copies, or there's 35 million copies of called the next Call of Duty is up for grabs. That's the baseline number we work with. It's about $2.4 to $2.7 billion just on the sales alone. But if you take all the Xbox sales out of that, and then you take the majority of the PC sales out of that with the expectation that it's going to add to subscriber growth, which is one of the options they're looking at, you've got to backfill that much. You're needing to lift the price up by about $5, $5.50 a month.
Yeah.
And hope that those people stay there for one game.
One game.
And that's across all subscribers, not just new subscribers. That's all subscribers. Or you need something like 7 or 8 million new subscribers to come in.
So think about that, David.
Or,
go ahead.
Sorry. There's the other option is that they've got it for sale with PlayStation because they have to, and they've got it for sale on Steam because they have to, and they've got it for sale to their own player base because they have to, or they want to. The other option is that it doesn't move the needle on the subscription side, which doesn't help the Game Pass argument, and they've got to crank the price up even further and still suffer the injustice of that thing not moving the needle. But the benefit there is they'll actually get the money from the other areas to come in to backfill that revenue gap, but they're still going to have a reduced revenue. So no matter what they do, from this point forth, Call of Duty is going to slide down the revenue path. It's just going to tumble down that ladder. Because if there's Game Pass involved, there's always a quality concern, and they've just dumped a heap of people out of those studios. I can't see how they think they're going to recover their costs associated or even go close to recovering the revenue that they thought they were going to get by putting it in day and date in Game Pass. Now, I said it earlier, if they take the option of it's in Game Pass day and date, but you can pay $30 to get early access to it, and that includes the first Battle Pass, that's the solution. That will get them a crap load of money to help cover the gap that they're going to end up with. But from that decision being made, and I still can't believe that they didn't just pay the money to get out of it. That decision being made, Call of Duty is going to be in Game Pass. Game Pass subscription price is going to go up for everybody, not just those who want that game. And so there's also the offset of who's going to not be subscribed now because of the cost.
Well, that's
so you're not just adding subscribers that you need to at a higher rate. You now got to cover off on the ones that are going to pull out of it because they don't have the games in there that they want to play.
I was just going to say,
what if you're not big dynamic?
What if you're not a Call of Duty fan, and now all of a sudden your Game Pass subscription goes up? Now you're paying for other people, that you're paying that price for a game that you're not going to play, and that's why that jump is exceeding. It's just that's right. So it's not only people coming into to sub. How many people will leave if they're not Call of Duty fans that are currently customers? That's a great point. No one's really brought that up.
That's why I say and that's why I made that comment, is that they've made this decision, right? There's no pathway back from this. They've committed to honoring the contractual and regulatory requirements of that deal.
Yep.
And putting it in Game Pass is going to have a financial implication. And I don't see from what they're saying at the moment, and all the information that is available, both publicly and not publicly, that this version of Call of Duty is actually going to outperform, because they've got that free-to-play Warzone version there as well. So putting the thing in a subscription service is not... It's going to have a detrimental effect in their revenue generation, which means that they're going to carry a loss with that acquisition along for a further period of time.
Yeah. I mean, I
know we're concentrating on one game, but like we're acting like it's just one game. Like I get that Call of Duty, and it's a huge reason why it's in there, but Game Pass has like 200 games in it. Like, but people are playing a lot of them, and a lot of them dabble.
Zucker,
that's what a lot of things say, and
Zucker,
that's what it's going to be to me.
That's what people say all the time, Zucker. But the other side to that is that those 200 games have been there, and it's been stagnant.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying about the whole thing about being consistent, right? Like that's me about being consistent, bringing out games. It's not just the solution of Call of Duty. I think bringing out more games is the solution.
But bringing out more games, that's constant requirement of content. Well, you need to go third party for that, but that's not sustainable with first party unless you acquire even more than you've already acquired.
Well, yeah, of course, and just like we just said, Sony does the same thing.
Third party is a massive money dump for a day one subscription service, because you're subsidizing sales losses, cannibalization, and that's why they wanted to buy them in the first place, is to bypass that kind of sales cannibalization payouts. Now, like investing is in second and third party like Sony does is completely different in that regard. It's a completely different ball game, because there's a mutual lucrative return on investment there for both parties as the goal.
I think the reason why they bought them is manpower and IP. The IP is insane right now. Like if you looked at the numbers through those court, how much Disney charges for using IP that they own, like call it Wolverine or Spider-Man, it's fucking insane. Like there's a reason why like Insomniac's given Spider-Man and Wolverine, because they sold very well. But a lot of people don't want to use that. Microsoft has been known for years not wanting to buy IP, or what do you call it, like rent IP, so to speak, that they don't own. It's why the WB thing failed, because they would not have gotten the IP.
Yeah.
And that's why it's like those people aren't worth it. So owning Blizzard's IP and Activision's IP was extremely worth it to them. That to me is the biggest get that they got, was that. And I get what you guys are saying, but like I don't think games like World of Warcraft is going to go on Game Pass. ESO or Elder Scrolls Online is not on Game Pass PC.
Playable on console. It wouldn't be physically possible to play.
Well, the RTS games weren't playable on console, and they still came there.
No,
like it's not that's not the problem.
There's way more keys and there's way more options than in an RTS in World of Warcraft, mate. I used to play World of Warcraft. The amount of like.
I still play World of Warcraft. I mean, I get what it's saying.
You know, it's not possible on a controller. You need a keyboard. For that.
There's actual mods that have it with controller that work fine. People play it on the Steam Deck right now, and people play it on the ROG. Like it has mods.
Wheels? Like what? Radio wheels?
No, yeah, they just wheel or just hitting, double tapping, holding LB. Like there's a lot that you can actually do with it that people play. I can't do it because I'm hyper competitive and I like the keyboard and mouse with it, but there's people that do play it with that, and it's not like this crazy thing, but they've talked about it. I think it's more like the IP. That's it. Like I think the IP, and I get Call of Duty, but like for me again, I don't care what the solution is, how they're going to make their money. I know that it's going to
I think
happen.
79 billion rate wasn't for IP. No way can IP alone
No, I said it was for the people. I said it's for the manpower too.
It's to shift the market. It's to shift the market. It's to control consumer behavior. But where they've dropped the ball is they've forgotten their own assignment, because they had to make Game Pass a necessity from the beginning in order for it to grow. They had to, along with all these acquisitions and IP, they had to lock it down as an exclusive to Game Pass. But by releasing them at the same time on Steam and other platforms, they're detracting from Game Pass with other options and alternatives. So they're just bleeding money. Yeah. They're stretching it out like a puddle on a hot day.
I think it's that thing. Like they've their own growth targets. Had they hit those growth targets, say they hit 44 million in 2023, and I think they said they wanted 110 million by 2030, right? So that's the targets that they laid out in the projections. If they were on track, things would be very different, right? Because suddenly it's a numbers game at the end of the day, and the higher the volume, the more revenue you've got coming in, the more leeway and less subsidy you have to make. But at the moment, the Game Pass numbers aren't there, and the cannibalization is there. So
I just think that we're going off of Game Pass being, and I get it. Like, they've advertised Game Pass for a long time, and they've said this and that. I'm telling you, I think that we're going to see a very different Xbox or a very different Microsoft gaming because of ABK. I don't know if, for me, I don't know. I don't know if Game Pass is the end all be all for them. Like, I don't think it is anymore. Like, to me, I think we're talking about this stuff, and I get it, but I want to see what they're going to do at this showcase, and I want to see what they're going to do after the showcase, which is in the next year and a half, because that's where everything gets integrated. Because I don't think Game Pass is like, oh, it's everything, because that's what it was, right? When I see Larry Herb, all that.
I see them shutting it down, honestly, or changing its model, fundamentally changing it.
I don't think they'll shut it down. I think they went too far with it, and I think they're gonna have to adjust the way it's managed, and I think that's it.
They're either gonna fundamentally change it, or they'll shut it down. It's one or the other, but they can't continue as it is. It's just bleeding them.
They made some big promises with it that they just haven't been able to make come to light, and the cost of doing that in this day and age is just, it's irresponsible.
Astronomical.
If they want to try and do it. I do have to go in a minute, but I just want to try and loop the conversation back to what we were discussing. And you do make a good point, Zorka, that there's multiple games, hundreds of games that are in Game Pass, but there's only a couple of games that exist in the world that have the magnitude to have an impact across gaming like Call of Duty does, just because of the size of it. And I don't discredit what you're saying at all. I actually think you make a lot of good points. The challenge is that a game this big will have an impact somewhere on a very real and material level across multiple different parts, because putting it in Game Pass dictates a price rise. And if they don't do a price rise, then they're backfunding it.
Oh, we already said that there is going to be one, and it's going to probably be announced at the show or right before Call of Duty, like in August. I think that they will raise the price. That was going to happen no matter what. And it's kind of like, it is the name of the game. Look at Netflix. Look at everybody. Everybody's raised their price. It just is what it is.
That's right.
And that will unfortunately have a detrimental effect on multiple other games in that service, because of the consumer habits and the consumer behaviors that will come out of it. Now I would dearly like to see a major shift in how Xbox management carries themselves, but I've been saying that for years, and we've still got the same people running it. But it's a very different contrast to, again, what we were talking about earlier with the strategy meeting that Sony and PlayStation came out with, and the things that they highlighted as part of their next 3 years. And when we get them 5-year mid-range plan, we'll get an understanding about when the PS6 or whatever that looks like is going to come out. But it's chalk and cheese between those ones. And Nintendo, when they show up with their Switch 2, what impact's that going to have on the industry? And we touched about that before. But I don't think, and very different business models. Nintendo relies heavily on their revenue stream, comes from 70% comes from their first party output. PlayStation gets more than 70% of its revenue from its third-party engagements. So yes, I'm probably a lot of doom and gloom from my comments earlier, but if a studio fails at PlayStation, they can shut it down. It's not great for their first party studios, but its impact to the broader organization is more shielded because of that third party arrangement. And in their strategy, they're leaning heavily into that PS1, PS2 style third party engagements. Now, does that mean straight up exclusives and money hatting exclusives and that? It will be there to some degree, but all their major partners have said they're going to peel back on the amount of games they're going to make. So they're going to focus on quality, not quantity. And that's the big six out of Japan, and the other major players in the Ubisoft and EA, Take-Two, and all those have all said the same thing. We're going to peel back on the amount of output because we realise there's a saturated market, and we're going to go back to quality. Now that quality may be quality indies, quality AA's, quality AAA's. The budgets for AAA's are ridiculous, but it's because of the cost-cutting availability they have. They choose to not bank the savings. They choose to just chew up the budget. So, and that's an entirely different 3-hour conversation if you ever wanted to get into it. But
speaking of 3 hours, Mooch, I'm gonna have to head out.
Well, listen, I'm wrapping up the show right after David is finished. I was just wanted to let him finish his point.
Wife came by and looked at me, and I was like, "All right." I get it.
Hey. I got that too. I mean, look, they're in a good position, and what we want as consumers, and I know I talk a lot about the business side of it too, but I put my gamer hat on for a second here. I just want good games. I want some magic in games. I want to enjoy the games. I didn't really get a lot out of that state of play this morning personally for me, but I can see there's stuff in there that my wife and son and friends are going to enjoy, and it's the same with stuff that happens with PC. My son and I are mucking around doing indie games on that. We enjoy that. There's stuff on Xbox. I still enjoy playing games. I had a huge amount of fun playing Halo in the older days. And I've got friends that their kids are pulling out the old Xbox 360s if they still work, or even the Xbox One X's, and chucking in Halo and having a bit of fun with them. So, and we've got all the good fun that comes out of Nintendo. We were playing the Switch the other day, Smash Brothers with the family, just kicking each other's asses for fun. So, I don't care where they come out. Just give us games, and we'll buy games, and we'll play games, and we'll enjoy games. The unfortunate side of it is, without money, we don't get them. And thankfully enough, it looks like there's enough money still in it that we can continue to get what we want. So
that's it. The games industry has done, even though we have talked about some of the dire straits, it has done quite well in the past few years. I believe the gaming industry is still making more than the movie industry? I thought I saw that one time. It still seems to be very, very popular, and it's growing. It's not something that before they say, oh, just gamers are just, we should play games and we're shut in the house. And that's not true. I mean, it's expanding exponentially right now.
Yeah. PlayStation announced that they made more profit in the first 4 years of the PS5 gen than they did the entire PS4 gen. And actually, when you consider the PS3 losses, it's more profit than every PlayStation generation combined, actually.
That's amazing. And like I say, we're at the halfway mark, Nib, and you're talking about there's a PS5 Pro, and then these PS5, the original PS5 should see at least $100 reduction in cost. If not more. So I mean, I think that, and again, we said at the beginning of the show, and I'll wrap it up with this. Go full circle. We haven't even seen Sony's big first-party studios yet. So you say what you want. I know Zucker had mentioned it earlier. Quick, we won't go down that rabbit hole again. But a lot of people have said this, so I'm not saying Zucker is the only one. A lot of people are like, well, we didn't really get anything from Sony. I got to be honest with you, as a consumer of both consoles. To be able to get Last of Us 2 remastered, to be able to get Helldivers 2, in order to get Rise of the Ronin, got Stellar Blade. I got to tell you, so far, first half of this year, I'm a very satisfied gaming consumer as far as the PlayStation 5 goes. A lot of people,
first half of the year was great for them. I mean, Final Fantasy, Helldivers, Stellar Blade, Rise of the Ronin. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say they don't have anything. I played,
but a lot of people have said, they refer to it as Sony first party, and it's fine. It's a conversation that runs parallel. But at the same time, if you just took $500 out of your pocket, bought a PS5 in January, you've had a lot of new games. You know, and to the consumer who doesn't have their ear to the ground like all of us on the panel and you guys in the chat, they don't know that. They're just like, can I buy Rise of the Ronin on Xbox or on PlayStation? Only PlayStation. Okay, where can I buy Final Fantasy? Only on PlayStation. Where can I play, Stellar Blade? I heard that's coming out with a new company. Oh, that's only on PlayStation. That's all the consumer really knows when they go to GameStop or they're looking on Amazon or looking online. They don't really, they're not like, oh my God, it's not a first-party game? Well, in that case, forget it. So a lot of those conversations we all have in the community, and they are fun banter back and forth. Love it for podcasting as well. But realistically, the average consumer is not thinking that way. They just want, like David was just saying, bring the games and we'll play the games. That being said, guys, I do want to say 3-hour podcast. Guys, I usually go between 2 and 2.5, but an outstanding and stellar panel. You have to let these unbelievably talented folks talk, and I sat back and I enjoyed a lot of what we heard tonight. I know that the audience did as well. I want to say thanks again to Sister Fister, I think it was, with an outstanding super chat. Thank you. I love the names you guys come up with on Twitch and YouTube. It's fantastic. But also, I want to say thanks to Mesh. Sister Fister. It's just... You got to give him credit where it's due. You got to give him credit where it's due. All right, so it is what it is. But the great Mash, who also donated so many great subscription memberships to look at the entire chat is green. It's fantastic. Mash, thank you so much. Guys, also thanks for the other super chats. I want to read these two here because they do matter. Raji says, thanks for the great conversation, Mooch. Love the analysis from Nib and David. Good debate with Zocker. Topical conversation. State of play 7 out of 10 for Raji. Shout out to King Thresh Gaming. I was just talking to King in the chat. We're gonna get King back on the show. He's gonna let me know what Thursday works for him. And if we weren't on the 3-hour mark, I would have brought him in earlier. But we'll get him on the show on a Thursday coming up. King, reach out to me. You know how. And we'll make that work. I can't wait to get King Thresh back on the show. It's always fun. He says they will raise the price of Game Pass, lower development costs, and go bi-yearly. And that's interesting because that was the one thing we didn't talk about. Will Xbox, in order to lower costs and having it in there, go every 2 years with a dedicated Call of Duty? A lot of people would immediately say, no, that's fine. I get it. But I got to tell you something. As far as just giving the developers more time to cook, and I love the game. I really, really do. But Warzone, listen, since Warzone's come out, I'm like 70-30 Warzone over even multiplayer these days anymore. So if they took an extra year to make that outstanding campaign better and make the multiplayer better, more maps, more weapons, I'm maybe for it. I don't know. I'd have to see how that all kind of transpires. But that being said, let me go in reverse order here and say thank you so much to everybody that was here. The great Zocker87. Zocker, I got to tell you, listen, great show. Great show. Loved having you on. Tell the missus we said thank you. I did not mean to hijack you for 3 hours. That was not the intent, but it was great having you here the whole time. I'm hoping I can get you on here again way before a 6-month mark. Great Zocker, outstanding tonight. Zocker, let people know where they can find you. And again, thanks for being here tonight.
Yeah, it was good conversations, man. I had a lot of fun with everybody, honestly. And I'm on Twitter at Zalker87 and YouTube Zalker87, getting back into it.
Yes.
Hopefully be able to make a video a week and then maybe do a podcast here and there. Life has been busy, and I really appreciate it, Mooch. Honestly, I know it's been like 3 years since I've been on the show.
It's
been a while, man. So it's good talking to everybody. It was actually good conversations. I laugh and say I came into enemy territory, but it's all a joke and fun for me. And,
it is.
I don't take it too serious.
No.
And just so you guys know, PlayStation sucks. I'm just gonna throw that out there.
There he goes.
I'm just fucking with y'all. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. You guys have a good night and everything. I'm gonna go be a good husband.
Zoka, you can't say you can't give Hellblade 2 like 5 out and then say you don't like Starfield and say that.
I have to. Oh, they are. Trust me, and I don't care. I say what I got to say, man. Most of them hated me for liking Sea of Thieves, and I was like, I don't give a shit. Sea of Thieves is boss.
It's a personal perspective opinion. You shouldn't have to justify that to anyone. You like what you like. That's the beauty of gaming.
That is the beauty of gaming. Outstanding. There's so many different walks of types of games out there. You can like whatever you like. Outstanding point, David. Zucker, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. You guys have a great night, though.
You too, Zucker. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it.
You too. Have a good one.
Later.
Nib, I got to be honest with you. I know that you work in the restaurant business, Nib, and I got to be honest. I am starving. I didn't really eat before the show. It's 10 o'clock here in New York, Nib. Will you please open up a chain in New York. You're going to make great money, and I know you love making money. Let's go. Come on, we'll work together here. The great Nib, everybody. Honestly, Nib, it's funny. I used to say to you when you first came on the show about how lengthy some of the Twitter reels you have that go off, and I got to tell you, it's outstanding. I sit back and I read, and you do your homework. You know what you're talking about. And then even if you have a conversation with somebody, say, you know what, honestly, yeah, I did research back into that. Maybe I was wrong on that, or maybe I was right, and you double down on it. Nib, it's outstanding. Let people know where they can find you on X, formerly known as Twitter. Because, guys, you're really missing out if you're not following Nib. But thanks for being here, Nib. I know it's late in your neck of the woods as well.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I just came back from Turkey last night, so
I saw the pictures. Outstanding.
But yeah, no, it's just Nib 95 _. So NIB 95 _ on X, and that's the only place I am at the moment.
Well, we appreciate you being.
Better be on that NibGN scene. Swear down, like
Nib GPT. I'm launching Nib GPT.
Nib GPT, bro. We need it. Nuance is dead. Context is dead.
But yeah, sorry I was late earlier, by the way. I came in a bit late, and then my mic wasn't working, and I was like, oh shit.
No, it happens.
But anyway, it was a good discussion as always. I always really do enjoy this podcast, and you've had some some great guests on tonight as well.
It was a lot of fun, Nib. I appreciate you being here.
With you, Nib.
Great addition as well, Nib, to the show. Really. If he wasn't in the restaurant business and over across the pond, we'd have Nib on as a permanent. I would have loved to have him on all the time. He's outstanding. Nib, great to have you. Speaking of great to have here, the great WoolleyGamer, guys. Wooly, I know it's also ridiculously late for you as well. I want to say thank you to you, and I got to say thank you to your family, because I get to borrow Wooly time away from the family. So I want to say thanks to them as well. Wooly, let everybody know where they can find you. And honestly, back-to-back weeks, great having you here.
Oh, mate, it's been an absolute joy. Thanks for having me. And it's been really nice rocking out with Jez and Nib and Faulkner. Like old friends from an old podcast, from a bygone era when things were different before I had a kid, and it's been a pleasure. And thank you for having me on. And a shout out to Zolker.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Zolker 87.
Yeah, for just keeping it real. And he was a great guest. For to be the devil's advocate, so to speak. Yeah, I've loved tonight, mate. And you can all find me on WoolleyGamer. So that's Woolley, WOOLLEY, WoolleyGamer, YouTube, or YT at the end, WoolleyGamer YT on Twitter. And that's kind of all I'm doing at the moment, for obvious reasons, with my little girl. And,
family first, Wooly. You still manage the game. You still manage the podcast. You're doing it all, buddy. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, mate, it's not easy.
No, it's not. Yeah. Believe me, I hear you. But it's great to have you here with us again, Wooly. And the great David Faulkner, guys. What you guys don't realize is I said it's 10 o'clock here at night. Maybe I'll have to get a pizza. But David just finished lunch when we started the show. So David's already thinking about what he's going to be doing on the grill. David, what can I say but outstanding again on the show. You really did great. I like how you bring your facts. I love how you're so invested into an avenue. I've been doing podcasting for a very long time, Dave, and have somebody like you in the community that really focuses in on the numbers side of things. It's intriguing. You can see the audience really, really loves it when you're on the show. People are following you on Twitter. People are very, very much interested in your profession and how you're able to tie your profession into the hobby that we all love. David, let people know where they can find you. And as always, thanks for being here tonight.
So you can find me at Forky87 on Twitter. If you got any questions, queries, or comments of the show, just reach out there, and I'm happy to talk further. I poke around on a few different podcasts. Mooch usually messages me the night before and says, "Hey, I've got a spot for you if you're interested." And I'm like, "Yeah, I fucking swing some meetings around, and we'll be there." So, but thank you for those kind words. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to all the people who tune in and listen. I know I can get a little bit TED Talkish at times, but it's one of those interesting things where without the money, we don't get to have the hobby. And unfortunately, it's just grown into a monster that it is. So I also want to just a quick thank you to everybody else who was on tonight for putting up with me when I go off on my little rants. Especially with Zolka, I think it goes to show that there is still the ability for us to have a difference of opinion with evidence to support those opinions, where we can have a sensible conversation and not come away from it screaming at each
That's
other.
right.
And I genuinely appreciate that this evening we've done a very good job of showing that that is possible.
You know, I'm glad you said that, David. It was the reason that I started the show. And don't get me wrong, anyone who's been following the show for the past 10 years, you know, we definitely had our a few screaming matches on the show. But guess what? The show's really evolved into what I really love. And it really is bringing PC. I don't care if you're Nintendo. I don't care if you're Xbox. I don't care if you're PlayStation. I like the fact that you bring a different opinion here. And I like to have a different panel here, and I think that's what keeps the audience engaged. Because when you show up to Crossfire, it is a different panel. I try to keep it get as many people from around the spectrum. We had some PC guys on last week. We had the great Zucker on tonight, definitely with the Xbox crew, and it's just great. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's just to have that open conversation. Difference of opinions, welcome. So thanks for recognizing that and mentioning it, Dave. I truly appreciate you see what the show's metamorphosized into, and I love every bit of it. Guys, that being said, I do want to actually give a quick tribute to the folks that had to leave earlier. Shout out to Jez7780. You guys know him from the Gaming Grindhouse. You can find him at Jez7780 over on X, Twitter. The Great Basement Radio Arcade Podcast, BRAP. That's BRAP_podcast, and he goes Wednesdays, 9 p.m. Eastern. Go over and check out BRAP. Detective Seeds, who's here every Thursday, that's at Detective Seeds, and it's the same over on YouTube. Go over and check out Seeds. The great middle-aged game guy, you guys know him as Mag. Sounds like Mooch, everyone says. He sounds like Mooch. The great Mag was here tonight. Love it when Mag's on the show. Go over and check him out. It's middle-aged game guy on Twitter, and he's on XNC on Monday nights. The great Gaming Forte, who is live right now with the great Slow-Mo Backslap. They're over there doing DPS Thursdays at 9 p.m. Usually I wrap up right after 9 o'clock, so everyone goes over and enjoys their show. I apologize, went a little late tonight, and you guys know Zucker was on earlier and had to leave. That being said, earlier, it was like 5 minutes ago. Nonetheless, I want to say, guys, we'll be back next Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern time, and we are planning, you know, we had the holiday last weekend, so I didn't do the Twitch thing. We're going to be back this weekend. We're back on Elden Ring, getting ready for the Erd Tree DLC, so come on over and check it out on Twitch. It's M00CHTV. Drop the O's for zeros, guys. We'll see you next Thursday again, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Hit that like button on the way out. Subscribe if you haven't already. Shout it again to the great Mash. Outstanding. Outstanding. Thank you for all those donated membership subs. Guys, we'll see you next week. Peace out and good night.
Layers, everyone.